We did good in Michigan, Matt. We won the whole thing in Michigan, didn't we, huh? 3 times we won. You know that, right? They didn't give us credit the second time, but we won the second time. But we made the last one, Matt, too big to rig, right? That's what you got. That's the only way you win races in many cases. I got to tell you, it's too bad. I think they should get voter ID. Wouldn't it be nice? The Democrats are totally against voter ID. Who's against voter ID? How can you even campaign? We are against voter ID. How do you not get voter ID? You know what it means, Matt, right? When you're against voter ID, you want to cheat. That's all. There's only one reason you want to cheat, and they do cheat. They're terrible. Michigan Senate Republican leader Eric Nesbitt. Thank you, Eric. Thank you. Look good, Eric. State Senator Jim Runstad. Jim, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Former Congressman Mike Rogers, who's running for the Senate, and he'll be a great senator. And he's going to be a great senator. He was a great congressman, and then he left. He went on to very big things. He did well, no matter where he was. And I think they took that away from you last time. I'll be honest with you, Mike. I really do. I don't like to get things going. I don't like to be controversial at all. But they rigged the election on you. Mine was too big to rig. You won. I'm telling you, you won. But you're going to do great this time. He's a great guy, actually. He's going to be an amazing senator. Thank you. Thank you for being here, Tim. Special envoy to Iraq, Mark Savaya. Mark. Hi, Mark. Thank you. Great job you've done. This guy, he negotiates better than anybody around. Thank you. You need it. With Iraq, you need it. You need to be a good negotiator, Mark. I also want to thank Michigan's great congressional delegation. They're amazing. That's been back in Washington due to a very important vote that's coming up. They had a choice. Sir, we want to be with you, but if we're not with you, we're going to lose. But we'll still be with you. I said, no, I'd rather have you win. Don't worry about it. So we're going to win the vote. Representatives Lisa McClain, Jack Bergman, John Molinar, Bill Heisinger, Tim Walberg, John James, and Tom Barrett. They're great people, every one of them. And as many of you remember, I came here at the height of the 2024 campaign to lay out my plan to bring jobs and factories and wealth racing back to the United States and coming back to the great state of Michigan. And just a few weeks later, the people of this state and the voters all across the country endorsed that vision in a landslide victory. We won everything. We won all 7 swing states. We won the Electoral College 312 to 226. We won the popular vote by millions and millions of... Oh, it's so nice to win the popular vote. I won the popular vote all 3 times, too, but we're not going to get into that. But the first time they said I didn't win the popular vote, but I won the Electoral College. So they always said, while he didn't win, this is the way I got introduced every time. While he didn't win the popular vote, he won the Electoral College, you know. So this is the way I was introduced for 4 years. And guess what? We said, I'm going back, we're going to win and we won the popular vote by a lot. So they can't say that crap anymore. And the thing that was most impressive, we won 86% of all counties in America, 2,700 to 525. Think of that, 2,700 to 525. And that's why when you look at the maps on Republican, Democrat, with red being Republican, as most of you know by now, I think, every once in a while you see one where they have it reversed. I said, why we do that? Well, we think it looks better. I said, look, red is Republican. Let's not try and change the voters' minds on things. Just do it that way. And the map was virtually all red. That was about the counties. That was the 2,700 to 550, I think is the exact number. Most importantly, we won a historic mandate to make America great again. And that's what we're doing. We're making America great again like never before. And now, after less than 12 months in office, this is the easiest speech to make. I have great people, and all I'm doing is spewing off what the hell we've done. Even Venezuela wasn't too bad, was it, huh? But you have people, Democrats, they say, I don't know if we should have done Venezuela, I don't know. Anybody that says that hates our country, okay? That was as flawless an attack as there has ever been. And they asked us to help them. They have 50 million barrels of oil. They said, take it. It's $5 billion. And we did. We're working with the Venezuelan people and representatives, and it's amazing. But that was an amazing situation. But we did al-Baghdadi, flawless. We did Soleimani, flawless. We did the Iran nuclear attack where we wiped out their nuclear capacity, which would have been very bad. You wouldn't have peace in the Middle East, flawless. We did them all flawless. I want to keep it going that way, too. I like flawless. Think about Jimmy Carter, the great Jimmy Carter, with the helicopters crashing, the hostages all over the place. Remember that one? Think about Sleepy Joe Biden with Afghanistan. What a disaster. The most embarrassing day in the history of our country, in my opinion. Real dope. Now, after less than 12 months in office, I'm back in Michigan to report to you on the strongest and fastest economic turnaround in our country's history. It's really been historic. There's never been, we're not 12 months, we're through 11 months. We've got $18 trillion being invested in our country. The most of any country ever was 3. We're at 18. There's never been anything like this. You are so lucky I allow you into this room to even be with me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. The fake news will say Donald Trump thinks he's hot stuff. Right now I'm feeling pretty good, though, I will say. Oh, you're so lucky to be here. Under our administration, growth is exploding, productivity is soaring, investment is booming, incomes are rising, inflation is defeated, America is respected again like never before, and other than that, we're not doing that well. Now, think of all those things I just said. Every single inflation down, growth at an all-time high, stock market every day, 48 days in a row, 48 days during the course of 11 months, we hit a new high on the stock market, all of them. 1 year ago, we were a dead country. Now we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that was said to me by many leaders. By almost every metric, we have quickly gone from the worst numbers on record to the best and strongest numbers, the most dynamic numbers, and an economy that is far ahead of even my optimistic. I had a very optimistic schedule, I thought. I didn't think it was, but people said it was very optimistic. Turns out to be very pessimistic by compared to what we've done. But we'll go down as the greatest in history, greatest first year in history nobody's ever had, just based on the numbers. Based only on the numbers, not based on me, based only on the numbers. Because, you know, you get these guys like the governor of California likes to say how well he's doing. California's doing horrendously, but he says how well. We base it on numbers. There's never been numbers like this. Through 4 long years before I took office, crooked Joe Biden and his allies in Congress inflicted the economic nightmare known as stagflation. How many times have you heard the word? We hit it with Joe. We hit everything. What a disaster. Meaning low growth and high inflation. How does that work? Not good. So you have lousy growth and high inflation. In fact, it's the lowest growth ever and the worst inflation in the history of our country. That is really tantamount to not having a good 4 years, right? In other words, Sleepy Joe and the people that ran the auto pen were a complete and total disaster for our nation. They were a disaster for our nation. Had they won the election less than 1 year ago, we would have been, as I've often said, Venezuela on steroids. Now I'm Venezuela's biggest fan. We're working with them, but they came down from a very high number to a disaster, a disaster. And we would have been Venezuela on steroids, and we're bringing Venezuela back, and we're going to be great for Venezuela, great for our country. We're taking in, as I said, millions and millions of barrels of oil. And now they're coming in initially on a daily basis, 50 million, and values of over $5 billion. That's in 1 day. Just think of it. The biggest ships in the world can take 1 million barrels. The biggest ships in the world take 1 million. We have 50 million barrels. We need 50 of the biggest ships in the world just to get it out. We're bringing it in to be refined. It's an incredible feeling. It's great. Winning is a good thing. We're going to work with Venezuela. We'll make that country very strong again. We'll get oil prices down even further. We have it down at about a 6-year low, 7-year low, but we're going to get it down further. Joe Biden gave us a colossal stagflation catastrophe, but my administration's rapidly and very decisively ended that. We have quickly achieved the exact opposite of stagflation, almost no inflation and super high growth. So we have the highest growth we've ever had. Think of that. The highest growth we've ever had, and we've only been there 11 months. Think of what we can do for the rest of it. But do we have wood around here? I want to knock on a little wood. They have one little, everything's plastic nowadays. It's very tough. Now we have the greatest growth, and we have, inflation way, way down. But we inherited terrible growth, and we inherited the worst inflation in the history of our country. The fake news would say 49 years. So when I say the history, they give me a lot of time, but I believe it's the history. But let's say 49 years. Would you say 49 years is okay, right? It's pretty bad. What do you think, Mr. Senator, Mr. Future Senator? I'd say 49. What sounds worse, 49 years or history? I think 49 years almost sounds worse. Maybe I'll just use it and I won't argue with these people. As of this morning, core inflation for the past 3 months has been just 1.6%. The numbers were just announced just before I came on stage. And GDP is smashing expectations with the fastest growth for this country in many years. The fourth quarter is projected at 5.4%, and that's despite the Democrat shutdown where we lost at least 1.5 points. The Democrat shutdown, we would have had close to 7. Think of that, close to 7. They were projecting to, the fakers were projecting to. And if we keep deregulating and adding more capacity, like I saw today at Ford, and if we don't raise interest rates every time good news is mentioned. In the old days, I'm probably old. I used to be up at these lecterns and I'd say, I'm younger than pretty much everybody in the room. Now I say I'm older than pretty much everybody in the room. I like it the other way better, actually. But you're too young. But in the old days, when you had good numbers, interest rates would go down. When you had good numbers, the market would go through the roof. That's the way we're going to make it again. That's the old-fashioned way. That's the right way. Today, if you announce great numbers, they raise interest rates to try and kill it. So you can never really have the kind of rally you should have. What happens and what we want, we're going to have a lot of great months, a lot of great quarters. I want the market to go up. You announce unbelievable numbers and the market goes down because they know you're going to do everything possible. In the Fed, we have a real stiff in the Fed, but that's for another day. But they raise rates. So everyone says, oh, they announced great numbers. It's great, great, great. And the market goes down because they immediately raise rates. No. When the market goes up, they should lower rates. You want to see 20% and 25%? You want to see what we can do? We've got to go back to an old standard. When there's good news, the market should go up, not go down. Does that make sense to everybody? And that's the way it used to be for most of the time. That's the way you make a country great. But our growth potential is unlimited and could be much higher if we went back to sanity. We're not doing it anymore. We're talking about the head of the Fed, and I want somebody that when the market is doing great, interest rates can go down because our country becomes stronger. See, you view it differently. Our country becomes stronger, and therefore interest rates should go down, not up. They kill every rally. If it's, no matter who, if it's beyond me as president, it's no matter who's president. You have a good quarter, and they want to kill it because they're so petrified of inflation. And growth and inflation don't necessarily go hand in hand. You can have growth and very low inflation. In fact, oftentimes growth is good for low inflation. So we're going to work on that, Scott, right? I think we're going to work on that very hard. I mean it so strongly. It's sickening. We announce good numbers, and we see the stock market drops 300 points. I say, what the hell is going on? Do you agree with me? It should be just the opposite. All right, Scott agrees, so I'm very happy about this. That means if he didn't agree, I wouldn't do it. But we're already growing double, triple, and even quadruple the speed of almost every other major economy on earth. We're the #1 economy on earth, too. And the results are in, and the Trump economic boom is officially begun. It's really begun almost from the beginning. It almost begun, if you look at it, really from November 5th. On another metric, just before the election, it was almost impossible to get people to join the military. We had the worst enlistment in the history of our country, the worst. You couldn't get people for the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, Space Force, the Coast Guard. You couldn't get people. And since right after the election, but especially since after January 20th when we took office, we have now the strongest enlistment we've ever had in the history of our country. We've never enlisted people so quickly, so easily. And we enlist by merit now. You know, we won a Supreme Court case that said you hire by merit. You go to college now by merit. Everything's by merit. Our country became great because of merit. And we have done some job. But think of it, a year and a half ago, we had the worst enlistment in history, and now we have the best enlistment. Things like that don't happen. You might go from the bad enlistment to okay, but you don't go from the worst in history to the best in history. But that's what we've done, every one of them. And that includes police and firefighters. It was very hard to get police. It was very hard to get firefighters, and now everybody wants those jobs. In 4 years of Biden, they secured less than $1 trillion of new investment in the United States. So 4 years, less than $1 trillion. In less than 1 year, I've secured commitments for over $18 trillion from all over the world, the most ever for any country. Think of that, though. They did, and I'll tell you what, had she won, it would be a disaster because you would have had people leave. You would have not had $1 trillion. You would have had $5 trillion, $10 trillion leaving the country, and your welfare would have doubled. When you look at what's going on in Minnesota, is that a disgrace? Is that a disgrace? But we'll talk about that. Under Biden, we had the highest trade deficit ever recorded, losing more than $1 trillion every single year. How about that? It was killing Michigan, and everywhere else in our country was being absolutely destroyed. But in a matter of months, largely because of tariff income and the election result, we've slashed that gaping trade deficit by, in a short period of time, 62, it just came out, 62%. People are stunned. The fake news back there, look at those cameras rocking and rolling. No, the fake news back there is, they're very upset about it, actually, but they're stunned. They can't believe it. We cut our trade deficit in actually 10 months was when the number came out. We cut it by 62%. It's going to go better than that now. The stock market is now the highest in history since the election. We've set all of those records, and I think an all-time record that's so important to me because so many people have them is boosting 401ks and retirement accounts for millions and millions of Americans, people that are in the police departments, the fire departments, people that are construction workers. A policeman came up to me recently, a nice guy guarding me. He's a perfect guy to guard me. He was a massive guy, big, strong guy. He said, "Sir, you made me look so good in front of my wife. My wife thought I was a horrible investor because every time I invested, we lost money. And we have a 401k, and I'm up like 85%. She thinks I'm Warren Buffett. She thinks I'm brilliant. She's now calling me brilliant. It makes my life much easier. I love my wife much more now. She calls me brilliant every time." I said, "Don't worry, you're going to do even better for the next 3 years." But one of the biggest reasons for this unbelievable success has been our historic use of tariffs. There was the tariff that made America strong and powerful in past generations, and then we got off it and we went to the income tax system. Great going, fellas. You know, we were the strongest in 1887, relatively speaking. That was around the McKinley time, and Teddy Roosevelt and some others, but we were really strong. It was all tariffs. And I know what happened. Some of these countries got together and they say, hey, convince the United States that it's no good, the tariff system is unfair to us. And so some genius, I know who, I don't want to get into it, but some genius said, oh, let's go to an income tax system. So instead of foreign companies and countries paying everything, the people started paying. And then after that, you had a depression, but that was a long time. That was in like 1913, you had the tariff switched into income tax. And then in and they like to blame tariffs. You ever notice they blame tariffs? No, they brought tariffs back in 1932. They brought them back to try and save the sucker. But it was in 1929, because a lot of people, you know, the anti-tariff people. Now, an anti-tariff person is a pro-Chinese person, like Coke. This guy's fought me in every election I've ever been in, and I've kicked his ass. He inherited a lot of money, and I don't know the gentleman. But he fights me, and then he goes out and says, I made more money with Trump than I ever made in my life. And then he supports these other people that were total losers. Gives them a lot of money, but he made more money. Everybody makes money with me. I always made money for people. Now, It's tariffs that are making money for Michigan, and the entire country is stronger and safer and richer than ever before outside of that period of time. No, if they had what was called the Great Tariff Act of 1887 or something like that, and it was a great group of people like yourselves. They picked really smart people to sit on a committee. They had so much money they didn't know what to do with it, and they wanted to have the money given away. You know, we built the Panama Canal out of tariffs. We did a lot of things. Panama Canal was the single biggest investment, relatively speaking, that this country's ever made. Would be the equivalent of trillions of dollars today. And Jimmy Carter gave it away for $1. It was also the most profitable thing ever built. In other words, like buildings or casinos or anything, the most profitable thing ever built was the Panama Canal. And brilliantly, Jimmy Carter thought the country of Panama should have it, even though we lost 36,000 people to the mosquito. You know that, right? To the mosquito and a certain snake, which was not a very nice reptile. This was a brutal reptile. You got bit, it was over. It was just like, bye-bye, everybody. We lost 36,000 people. Malaria, the mosquito, and the snake. And he gave it away for $1. Well, at least we got $1. That's better than most of those guys do. We got $1 for that. Most expensive thing ever built, most profitable thing ever built, too. Makes so much money. Every prediction the critics made about our tariff policy has failed to materialize. The evidence shows overwhelmingly that the tariffs are not paid by American consumers, that they're paid by foreign nations and middlemen. And Scott went over that with us before, and they're paid by middlemen. They raise the thing. Countries get involved. They pay them because otherwise they won't have companies. They won't be viable. And we're the big beneficiary. Once again, the so-called experts were 100% wrong, and Trump was right. People of Michigan were 100% right. You elected the right guy. If you had the other person, everybody, we wouldn't even be having a meeting today, probably. There'd be no meeting. The economic club would be saying, like, man, we're doing bad. It's going to be awfully tough to get people to show up. This is going to be tough, the chairman. This is going to not be a good day for us. We don't want to have, let's cancel the meeting immediately. The Trump tariffs have delivered us trillions of dollars of new investment, unprecedented new partnerships on minerals, rare earths, defense, and artificial intelligence, and historic levels of foreign military sales. You know, you have the Supreme Court now going to rule on whether or not we can use tariffs. Can you believe this? A case brought about by people that are China-centric, foreign-centric, but China-centric. I wouldn't want it if I was China either. You know, China's one of our biggest taxpayers right now. China. Would you ever believe you'd hear that? And they've been great. My relationship with President Xi has been great. But we have a group that's foreign-centric, China-centric, suing. And we'll figure something out if we don't win, but we should win. I mean, we should win. So great for national security. I ended 8 wars. Think of that. 8 wars. And without trade and tariffs, you wouldn't have been able to end any of them. But they brought hundreds of billions of dollars pouring into the United States Treasury, helped curb inflation, and helped cut the federal budget deficit by a staggering 27%. And that's only for a short period of time. The number's much bigger than that when you add in the full year. And I've told people I got into a lot of trouble because of the fake news back there. I told people, I said, tariff is my favorite word. I said, my favorite word of every word is tariff. I've loved it for 40 years. I came here many years ago. Remember, they said I didn't come here. Then they found out I did. I got an award in Detroit, in Michigan, many years ago, and still have it. They said it never happened. It did happen, turned out. I didn't notice any apology. But all I did was talk about you're losing your car industry. This was long before I ran for politics. They said you're losing. I said, why are you allowing these foreign nations to take your car? You know, you lost 57% of your car industry. The good news is you're getting it back. But I said, why aren't you using tariffs? I've been very consistent, I will tell you that, for years and years. Even as a private businessman, for years I used to, because I get, for whatever reason, a lot of publicity always. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it happens. And I talk about the importance. But I said recently, I said, tariff is my favorite word in the whole dictionary. There's no word. And I took a lot of heat. They said, what about your wife, your children? What about religion and God? What about Jesus? So I said, all right, it's my fifth favorite word. And since then, I've been fine. They hit me hard, these people, these fake news. They were killing me over tariff. He likes tariff more than his wife, more than religion. He likes tariff more than anything. What a disgrace. So I now call it number 5, and I'm in good shape. That was a rough day. It's my favorite word, and I got killed. Every word, you know, when you go up here, you take a big chance, especially me, because I go off teleprompter about 80% of the time. But isn't it nice to have a president that can go off teleprompter? When you think? Remember the speeches Joe would make? First of all, they'd last a matter of seconds, you know. Thank you very much. You ever notice Joe would always cough before a speech? State of the Union, he gets, ladies and gentlemen. And then it would be like very short. Although the one time they had him spruced up pretty good, remember, he was high as a kite. He was floating, he was up there way up. That was a bad speech. But, hey, he got through it, you know, he got through it. If you call it getting through, this country was so, can you imagine allowing 25 million people into our country, many of them criminals, many of them murderers? What he did to this country, what they did, because it was the people surrounding that beautiful, resolute desk. But just as I promised you that I've imposed a 25% tariff on all foreign automobiles, I'm standing up for the American auto worker like no president has ever stood up before. You know, those tariffs are keeping the foreign auto workers. Now, if they want to come in and build a plant and hire you and hire your friends and your neighbors, that's great. I love that. Let China come in, let Japan come in. They are. And they'll be building plants, but they're using our labor. U.S. auto factories are now seeing more than $70 billion of new investment. Think of that. They were leaving. They were all going. They were going in the opposite direction. Now they're pouring back. It's the greatest. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And much of that money is coming right here to the car-making capital of the world, Detroit. You lost, I mean, so many places. Since I took office, Ford has announced it will invest $5 billion across its Michigan and Kentucky plants, creating 4,000 new jobs. GM is moving production of the Chevy Blazer and Equinox from Mexico right back here to America. Right? Is my favorite auto worker here by any chance? You know who I'm talking about. What happens? Where's Brian? Brian, oh, I see. He made some cash. He's have to. Oh, he's been very disloyal to Detroit. We're gonna have to. He is such a great guy, right? Man, that guy fought for me when it wasn't the popular thing to do. He fought for me from day one. Well, you tell him I said hello to him, all right? That guy, he got it. 4 years ago, he got it right at the beginning. He understood it better than anybody, better than the great economists. They had no clue. And Stellantis is investing $13 billion to expand its U.S.-based manufacturing plant by more than 50%. Stellantis doing a good job. Never before has an administration achieved such sweeping and dramatic turnarounds as has taken place just in this very short period of time. I mean, you're talking about 11 months. 11 months and you have a different business. 11 months and you're booming. I just spoke to an AI guy, and that's booming too. You know, we're leading China in AI by a lot. I'm letting them build their own electric plants because people are saying, you know, the amount of electricity they need twice as much as electricity currently in the United States for every other business, home, factory. They need double. So I said, we can't do that. And then I had the idea. When they build these $50 billion plants, I'm going to let them build, and they're already building big electric plants to take care of their plant. And any excess electricity, they'll sell it back to our country. It's an unbelievable, and therefore, we're going to build, I think if they really add it, you know, you hear how much, and I have great respect for China, but you hear they're building a lot of electricity, but we are too. But we're having it built privately. They're going to own their own electric. They're becoming their own electricity producer. And when they heard this idea, they thought it was great, but they didn't take it seriously because they said it's too good to be true. But then they realized that I was serious. They were getting them 2- and 3-week approvals. They don't have to wait for 20 years before they get rejected. You know, in the old days, they had to wait for 20 years, and then they get rejected at the end of 20 years. Guys would give up their whole career trying to get one approval, and then they get rejected. In every aspect of our agenda, we're putting America first, and nothing will stand in our way. Nothing's going to stand in our way, nothing. So one of our top priorities in this mission is promoting greater affordability. Now, that's a word used by the Democrats. They're the ones that cause the problem. The one thing, they stick together. They don't have some of the people that we have. I don't know, it's a genetic thing. It's something in the blood. We got some real losers, mostly great. But I wouldn't use the name Romney because I'm in his sort of territory. So I would never use that name. But all right, I'll use it. They don't have a Mitt Romney that votes against everything. They don't have a Rand Paul that votes against everything. I got him elected twice. He was a stone-cold loser. I went to Kentucky where I won by a lot. I did a rally for him. Then I did another rally. He won. Then I went the second time. He won. Then he votes against all the time. It's just crazy. I don't get it. Then you have Lisa Murkowski and you have Susan Collins. Disasters. And you had a gentleman from Indiana that I don't believe it, Todd Young, he voted against. And you say, why are you voting against? They can't give you an answer. They're unable to give you an answer. It's like, why are they against the attack on Venezuela? They're against the attack after they found out it was the most successful attack, probably the most talented, most brilliant tactically attack that we've had maybe in 100 years. And they're against it. Why? It's one thing if the attack failed. I'd probably do that too, a change. I'd be in favor. Then if it failed, I'd say, I told him not to do it. That's what they do. But here we have one of the most successful attacks ever, and they find a way to be against it. It's pretty amazing. But it's a shame, and we have some others, but not many. We have a great party, but we have people, the Democrats, whether you like them or not, they stick together like glue. They have horrible policy. Thank God they have horrible policy, because they're smart, they're evil, they're vicious, but they have bad policy. For instance, you could be a genius and try selling men playing in women's sport. You could be a genius, try selling transgender for everybody, open borders, let the world come in, let the world's prison population come into the United States, including all of the murders, 11,888. That's what we're trying to get out of Chicago and Minnesota and these places. So they stick together, which I admire because I'm a very loyal person, but they have horrible policy. Can you imagine if they had good policy? They were on this morning talking all the reasons that men should be playing in women's sports. They had a football guy there, flag football. This guy was like 6'6". He weighed 290 pounds with zero body fat. And they had a few young women. They were the size of his leg. He wouldn't have had to run. He could have just walked. They couldn't have done a thing about it. 10 of them would have to jump on him that wouldn't have had any impact. I don't think he would have been like a fly. It's so ridiculous. It's so demeaning to women. It's so demeaning. Look at the weightlifting records. I mean, the record got beaten by 112 pounds, a record that stood for 18 years. 1 ounce they'd put on, stood for 18 years. Guy comes along who was a poor lifter as a man. He was at the lower portion of the class, comes along and broke the record by 112 pounds. Think of that. They've fought for years to beat that record. How about the swimming records? I mean, you can go to sleep during the time the man comes in and the woman. You can go take a nap for a little while. How about the long-distance race that took place not so long ago? Long distance, these marathon deals. They had top men, top women. The man came in. The woman came in 5 hours and 14 minutes and 36 seconds behind the man. Think of it. You're waiting. The man comes in. Now you're waiting 5 hours. What do you do if you're the parents? You go home and sleep for a while. Who the hell wants that? It's so demeaning to women, and who are great athletes. It's so demeaning to them, and it's right now in the Supreme Court. I can't believe it would even go to the Supreme Court. I mean, could you imagine 20 years ago talking about men playing in women's sports? They'd think you're crazy. Or transgender for everybody? If you said there will be no mutilation on children, that's one of my standing lines. We will not allow the mutilation of a child. Can you imagine having to say that 15 years ago? People would say, is that guy crazy? Of course we won't. But we're living in a different time. It's a crazy time we're living in. After real wages plummeted by $3,000 under Sleepy Joe Biden, real wages are up by $1,300 in less than 1 year under President Trump. For construction workers, wages are up $1,800. Don't forget, they were down $3,000. Factory workers over $2,000, and for many other workers, over $5,000. And I just gave the military, because we're doing so well with taking in so much money with the tariffs, I just gave them $1,776. You saw that, right? Did you see that? They had 75, and I said, you know, if you had one more dollar, it's 1776. They said, that was a good idea. We could afford one more dollar. We gave them 1776. Meanwhile, grocery prices are starting to go rapidly down. Rent is down. Airfares are down. Hotel rates are down. Cell phone prices are down. And we're just getting started. But more importantly than going down, our growth is through the roof. It's way up. Among my first acts in office was to end the radical left war on oil and gas and stop the crusade to kill American energy, and frankly, to open up cars so that you don't have to have an electric car. I love electric cars. I think they're great. I like Elon a lot. I don't think he was too happy with my policy of opening it up, and I can understand that. But I've been saying it for 4 years. They wanted everybody to have an electric car in a very short period of time. There was no way to build the stations. There was no way to get it done. I want you to have gasoline-powered cars. I want you to have electric. I want you to have hybrids. I want you to have everything. Hydrogen, I don't know about. I'm hearing it's not testing so well. It's fine, except when there's an explosion, you're a goner. Now, have you heard that with hydrogen? One guy's trying to sell hydrogen, and I say, yeah, but, sir, that only happens 1 in 100. Oh, great. When it happens, they find the body like 300 yards down the road. So I said, I'll pass on hydrogen. Maybe there's something I don't know about, but is anybody in the hydrogen car business? Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in 17 states and under $2 in many places. We have some states it's $1.95, $1.99, $1.97. As we speak, these are gas stations, and think of that. We have gas stations in the Detroit area where you can fill up for less than $2.30 a gallon, whereas 2 years ago it was $4.50, and in many places it was way over $5. Think of that, $2.30. You see it. That's like a massive tax cut, which we gave you under the great big beautiful bill, by the way. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. And with our extremely successful operation in Venezuela earlier this month, that number soon is going to go lower because we're going to have a lot more energy. We're going to have a lot more, as opposed to a country that's going to be totally shut down. No fuel, no gasoline. And it's, you know, they say it's got more than Saudi Arabia. Who knows? It's got a lot. And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions if possible. And save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers. Look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over. And it's all very fragile. It would have happened to us, I'm telling you. If I didn't win this election, it would have happened to us. In the coming weeks, I will be laying out even more plans to help bring back affordability. And again, remember, that's a fake word by Democrats. Prices were too high. They caused the high price. They never want to talk about affordability. They always go, this is an election about affordability. I say, they caused it. But they're good at that stuff. They're good at that stuff. They're fake, and they're good at that stuff. It's an election about high prices that was caused by the Democrats and that I brought down a lot. And remember, when you see energy coming down like I brought it down, and gasoline coming down, that brings everything else down. It's so much bigger than any other factor. When gasoline gets to be $1.99 a gallon, everything comes down. The donuts come down, the truck that delivers the donuts, the stove that makes the donuts, the whole thing, it all comes down, and it's coming down much faster than anybody can even believe. And remember, though, I always say, because normally when that goes down, the world comes down. That's the bad way of bringing it down. Our growth is through the roof. So I always want to say that whenever I say prices are coming down, but our growth is going way up. Two beautiful events, the exact opposite of the Biden administration. As part of those efforts at Davos next week, I'm going to provide much more detail about our housing policies so that every American who wants to own a home will be able to afford one. We have some great things happening with housing, as you know. You saw the $200 billion buy-in on bonds and mortgages. This will include a ban on large institutional investors buying up single-family homes all over the country and making it impossible for people to buy a home. And I've also announced that the U.S. government is purchasing $200 billion of mortgage bonds to bring down mortgage rates, and it's had a huge impact. It's already started. And just last week, the average 30-year mortgage dropped below 6% for the first time in many years. It's coming down very rapidly, and that's not with the help of the Fed. If I had the help of the Fed, it would be easier. But that jerk will be gone soon. In addition, I proudly called for the credit card companies to cap interest rates at 10% for 1 year because they're getting 28 and 30% and 32%. And it's unfair. The rates are way too high. To provide further relief to hardworking Americans, we'll also be confronting one of the biggest factors in driving up prices, the monstrosity known as the Unaffordable Care Act. You know what that is, right? It's Obamacare. It's a great name, Unaffordable Care Act. Nope. Did anybody ever think of that one before? It's true. It's the Unaffordable Care Act. Obamacare was a gift to make health insurance companies rich at the expense of the American people. In particular, the so-called enhanced premium tax credits were a corrupt payoff to the insurers, whose stock prices went up more than 1,000% after Obamacare was signed. I want the same money I want it to go directly, very simple. I want the money, those big amounts of money paid for by the government, to go directly to the people so they can buy the health care that's right for them. They can negotiate their own deal, health care savings account, but they'll buy their own health care. And everybody loves it. That's why later this week, I'll announce our health care affordability framework that will reduce premiums for millions of lower drug prices, delivering price transparency and demand honesty and accountability from insurance companies all over the country, all over the world, actually. Health care costs will come down very fast with my most favored nation executive order. We're doing most favored nation drug prices. When we would have drug prices stay the same, everybody thought it was great. They're going to be coming down thousands of percents. We're standing up to special interests and slashing prescription drug prices by 300, 400, 500, and even 600% and more. I mean, think of that. On that alone, we should win the midterms in a landslide. I'm doing favored nations. The country that pays the lowest price in the world is the price that we're going to pay. And we got that because of tariffs, because I said to the countries they wouldn't approve it. The drug companies were tough, but they were fine. But they said the countries will never do it because you have a pill that sells for $10, you have to sell it for 20 or 30. So you'd have to double or triple the price of their health care there for prescription drugs. Ours would come down from $130 to $20. Theirs would go from 10 to 20, the world being a bigger place. And it was unbelievable, but the countries wouldn't do it. So I called the countries. I said, if you don't do it, then I'm going to put a tariff on you. And the tariff's going to be 20 times more than the cost that you're having to pay for fair health care. And every one of them said, sir, we agree with you 100%. We would be honored to do it. It was really rather amazing. We could never do it. So think of that. You have most favored drug prices. Your drug prices are going to go down like from $100 to $10. Nobody can believe it. And we can't get the fake news to write about it. It's the biggest thing to happen in medicine. It's the biggest thing to happen in healthcare. And I cannot get the New York Times, I cannot get anybody to write about it. When we got it done and we announced it, it was on a page way in the back of the New York Times. Same with others. They don't want to talk about it. You know why? Because it's so good. It's the biggest thing to happen. Over the past 12 months, almost every promise I made to you right here in 2024 has been kept. I've kept all my promises and much more. I mean, I've given you much more than I gave you promises, and I produced much more than I said I was going to produce. I gave you the largest tax cuts in American history, cutting taxes across the board in the great, big, beautiful bill. And as I told you, I mean, who would have gotten you no tax on tips, as I said before? No tax, I say it over and over again, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for our seniors. Any senior should be voting for us because the Democrats won't do this. It doesn't work for them. And we also made interest on car loans fully tax deductible, so that when you go out and buy a car, if you have a mortgage or you get a loan on a car, you're allowed to deduct interest for the first time ever. That's never happened before. But only for cars that are stamped with the beautiful words, made in the USA. In other words, we're only letting that take place if the car is made like in Detroit or in the USA. Our tax cuts also provided 100% bonus depreciation on all new equipment and capital investments, meaning that for any manufacturer looking to bring production back to America, you can write it all off, everything, not in 38 years, not in 44 years, in 1 year. You write the whole thing off in 1 year. That's the biggest thing there. I think that's the biggest thing. That's the big job producer. And I've cut an unprecedented number of burdensome regulations. We're number one in the history of our country in cutting regulations. I promised to cut 10 old regulations for every one new regulation. So if we put on a regulation, the only way I'll allow it to happen is if the secretary, like Scott Bessent, cuts 10 old regulations. But instead, last year we actually cut 129 regulations for every one that we put in. Think of that. So nobody's ever cut regulations like I have. I terminated the insane electric vehicle mandate and ended the war on internal combustion engines. Once and for all, those engines were gone. And some people like them. And if they like them, great. And if they like electric, if they like any form of propulsion, any way you want to propel your car is okay, except for a couple of them, as I discussed. I permanently stopped Joe Biden's ridiculous CAFE standards. You know what the CAFE standards are? They're standards that make it impossible for you to build a car affordably. They make it impossible for a car to really work right. The CAFE standards sound so nice. The CAFE standards, it's environmental standards that are impossible to meet. And we're canceling the EPA's absurd tailpipe emission standard, one of the worst ever. And I revoked the California emissions waiver to stop San Francisco communists from regulating automobiles all over our nation, all over our world. Boy, I have done so much for the car industry. It's crazy. Nobody thought it was possible to do this. And that's why your industry, and not everybody's in the car industry in this. How many people are in the car industry in this room, in one way or another? That's a lot, relatively. It's not bad. Another urgent priority for bringing down the cost of living is to stop the colossal fraud that is bleeding American taxpayers absolutely dry. The fraud being committed by the Somali population in Minnesota. Have you heard of them? They're lovely people. Is monumental. And California, Illinois, New York, and others are just as bad. Our country has been losing over $500 billion to fraud every single year, but those days are over. We have the best group you've ever seen assembled going after fraud. In Minnesota, we're cracking down on the Somali scams, ending the brazen and shameless theft of taxpayer dollars. Well, it's going on in Maine, too, with Somalis. You know, and they don't take our ships anymore. You know why? We hit them with the same missile that we used to hit the drug dealers coming in with the boats. You know, we have drugs coming in by sea down 97%. You've seen that? 97%. And we're trying we're really trying hard to find out who the hell is the other 3%. But we have them down 97%. And we're going to start hitting them by land, too. The hard part is done. By sea, nobody's coming. It hasn't been great for the fishing industry, however. Those that have a fishing boat, they're having a hard time getting customers, but you can't have everything. Nobody wants to go on boats. Nobody wants to go like 25 miles an hour. When you see a boat with 5 engines on the back of it going 65 miles an hour, and it's loaded up with hundreds of bags that you see cellophane with white, typically it's not fishing. How about the couple of submarines we took down? We took out 2 submarines, and the Democrats say they were fishing. No, they were submarines. They were actually, they build a very fast, it's a drug-carrying submarine. They have a lot of money. And we took them out, and the Democrats claimed that they were fishing. We shouldn't ruin people's beautiful fishing journey. It's unbelievable what we have to go through. It's really a shame, actually. We frozen all children's payments to those states that we're talking about, and we will now require proof of attendance in order to receive federal funding for child care or any of that. How about all these child care places in Minnesota where there is no children? They go there, they get paid millions and millions of dollars. The biggest operation in all of Minnesota had no children. And we pay millions of dollars. They're scammers. They're scammers. They always will be. And we're getting them out, and we're not going to pay them. We're not going to pay Minnesota. Right, Scott? We're not paying Minnesota any more money for that, any of that crap. It's a big scam. It's a giant scam run by an incompetent, crooked governor. He's an incompetent, crooked guy. And also, we're freezing any and all welfare payments going to illegal immigrants that will start effective immediately. So when illegals come into California, Gavin Newsom, they come into California, and they send us bills for people coming in. We're not paying it. So we're working on that very strongly. Just don't pay it. As Nancy Reagan would say, just say no. You remember Nancy Reagan? Just say no to drugs. It's a little more difficult than that, I guess, right? But just say no. Additionally, from this moment forward, if you're on public assistance, like almost all Somalis are, did you see where 94% of them are on public assistance? You can't wire money out of the country back to your bank account from where you came. But more importantly, we probably aren't even going to give them the money anymore, the money going to them, because of the tremendous abuse and probably illegality being perpetrated on our country. We're not going to give them the money. We're not giving them the money. It's massive numbers of people are scamming our country. You know, they came from a place with nothing, and they come here and they drive around in Mercedes-Benz. You know, the Mercedes-Benz dealers do well in that area of Minnesota. Can you believe it? They have nothing. They get welfare payments, and they have Mercedes-Benzes. It angers me so much, but we're going to straighten out our country. This was done under Biden and Obama, very much under Obama. It all started under Obama. And we just can't. We've got a great country. We're not going to screw it up. But this was one of the great scams ever. They have the same thing, Somali in Maine. Who would think? I never saw that happening. But in Maine, it's really crooked as hell, too. But it's not just Somali. It is them, but it's not just. There are many other places, many other people. The whole country. If we stop this fraud, this massive fraud, we're going to have a balanced budget. That's how much money you're talking. We'll have a balanced budget without all the growth I'm talking about. And then you add the growth, we got one hell of a country. We're giving 90-day notices to places like California, Scott. Right away, we're going to send out that notice. Who would bill the federal government as people poured into the state to send those people back because no country can afford to do it? No country can afford to take in millions of people, pay for their education, their health care, their hospitals. You just can't do it. And we all have a heart. You can't do it. But many of those people are murderers. They're people released from jails, prisons, mental institutions, insane asylums. They're people that are drug dealers. They're addicts. Additionally, starting February 1st, we're not making any payments to sanctuary cities or states having sanctuary cities because they do everything possible to protect criminals at the expense of American citizens, and it breeds fraud and crime and all of the other problems that come. So we're not making any payment to anybody that supports sanctuary cities. We have also suspended nearly 8,000 SBA loans, Small Business Association loans, to suspected scammers in Minnesota, of which there are many. It's a great state. It was a great state. Now it's getting destroyed by that stupid governor. What a stupid guy he is. But he's a crook. I mean, he's an incompetent guy, but he's a crook. He allowed this to go. You can't have corruption on a scale that nobody's ever seen before, and you're sitting as a governor and you don't know what's going on. It's impossible, even though he's a stupid guy. We're investigating large-scale visa fraud, and the Department of Justice has already charged nearly 100 people in criminal conspiracies in Minnesota. They're all over the place. Last week, we announced that I'm creating a brand-new division at the Department of Justice, a legal strike force led by a really tough, smart new Attorney General for fraud. He's a fantastic young guy. He's so impassioned to do this properly. We intend to imprison any fraudster, politician, or public official involved in these sick plots to loot and pillage our country. Think of that Ilan Omar. She lives in Somalia. They don't have a government. They don't have a military. They don't have police. They don't have anything. All they have is murder and robbing ships, bringing in ships, pirates. That's stopped. Same missile, ping. That's the end of them. It's amazing how that can stop corruption. Those missiles, they never miss, you know. The same one, exactly the same one. But think of it, she comes from a country with nothing, and she comes here and she tells us about our Constitution. I have a constitutional right to rip off the country. I guess she's a total scam artist. Anybody knows it. How do you let her get away with it? AOC +3. She was one of the three. They're all scammers. They're so bad for our country. They're so bad for our country. Our ICE operation in Minnesota, for example, is finding hundreds of killers, violent predators, and child rapists, some of the worst criminal offenders anywhere in the world, murderers all over the place. All we want to do is get them out. Did you see the pictures that we put up? Hundreds of them. Murderers wanted for murder, wanted for the worst drug selling. One of them is one of the biggest drug dealers in the world. And vicious, sells bad drugs too. Bad drugs, like if you take a tiny little morsel, your child is dead. And we're getting them. But it's hard to get them because they make it so impossible for you. And you wonder why. Why would they do that? You know, do they want to live with murderers? Do they want to live with these people that are emptied out from prisons? They have a lot of people. One of the reasons I was so angry with Venezuela, they emptied their prisons almost entirely into the United States of America. Tren de Aragua was the gang. One of the worst, probably the most violent gang there is anywhere in the world, they say. We're getting them out. We've got a lot of them out already, but we're getting them out. We're also going to revoke the citizenship of any naturalized immigrant from Somalia or anywhere else who is convicted of defrauding our citizens. We're going to get them the hell out of here fast. And if you come to America to rob Americans, we're throwing you in jail and we're sending you back to the place from where you came. We're throwing you right in jail. And they know it, too. And one of the reasons they're doing these fake riots, I mean, they're just terrible. I mean, you see it's so fake. Shame, shame, shame. You see the woman, that's all practice. They go practice. They go to areas, they take hotel rooms, and they all practice together. It's a whole scam. We're finding out who's funding all this stuff, too. We pretty much know. But in conclusion, as we liberate our country from this cultural scourge and the plague of corruption and fraud, we'll rediscover the natural energy and native spirit that truly makes America great again, like we're doing with Detroit and Michigan. If we get rid of fraud and do our job properly on the trillions that are being extorted out of our country from corrupt and incompetent governors like Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, and Tim Walz, we will very soon have a balanced budget, and that's the kind of money that we're talking about. We're talking about massive amounts of money. Our country wasn't built by people who tried to lie and cheat and scam their way to success. It was built by legends like Henry Ford, Henry Dow, Thomas Edison, the Kellogg brothers, Alfred P. Sloan, the founder of General Motors, men who lifted up American workers and strengthened our nation beyond even belief. And we're doing the same exact thing right now. I think we're doing it even better. This is the fierce spirit of patriotic free enterprise that we're now unleashing once again. We are unleashing it like maybe never before. Together we have turned the page forever on the failed left-wing model that makes our America poor, desolate, and makes people feel sorry for us. That's what we had. We had a country where our leader was laughed at and our country was scorned. We had a country that was laughed at. They laughed at us. 2 years ago, they laughed at us. They thought we were fools. They thought we were stupid people. Now we're seeing that they're not the smart ones. We are. But we have a great America, and we're going to enrich it. And foreign nations, foreign migrants, criminal fraudsters, and corrupt politicians are not going to play a role anymore. They're going to be in jail. Under the Trump administration, we're reclaiming America's dignity, rebuilding America's wealth, and we're putting the productive, hardworking American citizen at the center of every single thing that we do. They were the ones that built America, and they will build it up again, and that's what they're doing at levels nobody thought was possible. So today, after less than 1 year, our border is secure. Remember, they talked about the border, how bad? In 3 weeks, I didn't go to Congress. I said, secure our border. And they did. Remember Biden, he said, I have to get approval from Congress. Had nothing to do with Congress, had to do with respect. Our spirit is restored. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our economy is booming like I think you'll see soon, like never before. Our military is strong and unprecedented. I rebuilt our military in my first term. Our workers are thriving and our auto industry is returning to the country where we all began and where it all began, and frankly, a country that we love. The United States is winning again, and we're rapidly making America and the great state of Michigan greater and more prosperous than ever before. I want to again thank the Detroit Economic Club. You do a fantastic job, so respected. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and this is NTD Newsroom. Thank you for joining us today. You were just watching President Trump and his remarks at the Detroit Economic Club, touting his achievements on the U.S. economy in his past year, saying that the U.S. is seeing the strongest and fastest economic turnaround with $18 trillion invested into the U.S. due to tariffs. And he contrasted that with the Biden administration, saying that Biden had less than $1 trillion of investment into the U.S., and noting that it is over a 4-year period, whereas President Trump's investment of $18 trillion is over a 1-year period. And also saying that he had stock market highs. He says inflation is defeated, wages are growing, wages growing over $1,000, 401ks are growing as well due to the stock market highs. And he says this often, he said it again today, hottest country in the world, greatest first year in history based on a number. He says this is not based on him, but this is based on the numbers. Okay, we're going to discuss this further. Joining us now is Brian Leib, political strategist and foreign policy analyst, as well as the CEO of Henry Public Relations. Okay, so good to see you again. First off, can we get your reactions here, Brian, on the message that President Trump gave at this event?
Yeah, sure, Don. Good afternoon, and hello to the NTD audience. President Trump's hour-long message here was very vintage President Trump. He hit all of the right points and also interjected a lot of his personal commentary, shall we say, into the speech. But I think, what we heard the president talk about over and over and over again is that, our economy is firing on all cylinders right now. The tariffs that we've been bringing in from other countries are really at record highs right now. So, we are, as the president says, we're the hottest country out there right now when it comes to doing business and finding a place to invest in. And we heard that again from the president. So I think it was a fantastic speech, well received, pitch perfect as always.
Okay, so what is President Trump doing that has led to this economic growth over 4%, the last numbers that we got for the GDP, and contrast that with previous administrations?
Well, in contrast to previous administrations, what President Trump has done is he's reduced a lot of the red tape and a lot of the restrictions and regulations on businesses. And I think that that's very important for two reasons. One, to actually do it in the first place is a good thing. But two, it also sends a message. It's more of an optics thing. When small businesses feel that they can start their business without having to jump through 15 different hoops, when nonprofits and other organizations, feel that they can expand and they can grow because there's not a lot of regulations on them, it's good. And I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, consumer confidence continues to rise. I think the American people are definitely doing better than we were a year ago. And also, I think a big part of that, Don, is the president's tariff strategy. It's bringing in not just hundreds of millions of dollars. We're talking about billions of dollars that have been coming into the economy, which is really, again, it helps our economy, helps us pay down some of that deficit. But I think it also is more of a mental thing, and it makes us as the American people feel that our economy is doing well, and it is.
Yeah, and President Trump, on the topic of deregulation, I mean, even I was surprised by the numbers that he gave. He said for every regulation that he added, he cut 129, I think was the number he said exactly, which is quite surprising. He said he would do 10, but it's actually 10 times that and more. So, I mean, that alone, I think, surprised me. Can we also ask you about what you think about tariffs? You mentioned that already a little bit, but what exactly were the impacts? And if the Supreme Court strikes down tariffs, what would be the impact of that as well?
I don't think the Supreme Court, just my personal opinion, I don't think they're going to be striking down the tariffs. I mean, what President Trump is doing is he's doing what any other president had their presidential right and presidential power to do, but President Trump is the only one that had the courage to do it, and more so, he's a deal maker, so he's making deals and he's using the tariff as strategy to increase investment coming into this country. So I think the tariffs overall have really been an essential part of the president's economic strategy. And there's a lot of other things at play too, but the tariffs really are important. And when the president is using that to bring in foreign investment to our country, it's a big tool in his toolbox that he has to use, and a lot of other presidents haven't used it like he is.
Okay, I want to ask you about another topic that President Trump brought up in his message just now. He said promoting greater affordability is on the top of the list in his agenda of America First. So some numbers he gave: grocery prices starting to come down, rent is down, gas is down. He's citing 197, 195, 199 per gallon in some areas. As well, drug prices down by 600% in some cases. He says that they should win the midterms on this alone, talking about the most favored nation pricing. But how do you look at a Gallup poll from last month that showed nearly half of U.S. adults, about 47% now, describe current economic conditions as poor? It's up 7% since November.
You can poll someone and poll a group, based on, a whole wider range of different questions and different conditions. So I tend not to put too much credence in the polls, to be honest with you, Don. But I think, listen, we have to be honest with ourselves, and, whether you're, part of the top 10% earners in this country or you're not, I think everyone is feeling that things are more expensive. That's not necessarily something specific to us, the American people. Things are more expensive everywhere you go, anywhere around the world. But affordability is important, and for families that have been struggling to make ends meet, put food on the table. The fact that rent payments and things are going up is not helpful. But President Trump, you just cited a couple different categories where the prices are down. That helps, but we definitely do have an affordability issue, in this country, and in terms of families being able to buy homes and rent increasing. I think, listen, I'm bullish on our economy. I'm bullish on our future as a country. And I think that we still have 3 more years of President Trump, and the things that he's been able to do in just a year has been remarkable. So let's see what he can do in 3 more years.
Okay, Brian, we would also love to hear your comments on President Trump bringing multiple ceasefires and peace deals. It wasn't a focus of the economic club speech, but it's a big development that has potential impacts on the economy. Nevertheless, he arrested Venezuelan dictator Maduro, and he's vowing serious support for Iranians. How much do you think this could play into the midterms, in addition to the economy?
Well, listen, foreign policy is typically not even in the top 5 of issues that an American voter cares about. But with that said, it definitely is important, and I think it's getting a lot of attention. And what President Trump has been doing on the world stage has been remarkable. The operation that we carried out in Venezuela was nothing short of remarkable. And at the end of the day, we've got to stand with people that are being oppressed. It doesn't mean that we have to be the world police, but it means that, in my opinion, I think that we should stand with people that are being oppressed. So if it's the Venezuelan people that have been living, under a dictatorship, whether sometimes it's the Chinese people living under the CCP's regime, and also in Tehran with the Iranian people. So I think we don't have to be the world police when it comes to actually sending boots on the ground, but we need to step up and help people when they need help.
Okay, so just finally, the president on stage encouraged Iranian protesters to take over their institutions. He said the U.S. will come to their aid. What could having such overt support from the U.S. president mean to protesters in Iran?
Well, based on what I'm hearing and seeing, it is the ultimate game changer. To be honest with you, at this point, I don't even think President Trump is going to have to do anything from a military perspective for there to be regime change. He put 25% tariffs just the other day on any country doing business with Iran. He's been doing a lot of other things overtly, covertly, from an economic perspective to really bring this regime to their knees. But when you have the leader of the free world and President Trump telling the Iranian people to keep going, keep fighting, that we stand with you, that's huge for the Iranian people. They've never had that before. So it's in a sense it's a fuel for them that keeps them going, and it also continues to send a message to the mullahs in Tehran and the Khomeini regime that their time is very limited at this point. So we'll see what happens. But as I said, there could be a scenario here, Don, where in the next, who knows, hours, days, maybe even a week, this regime could fall, and it could all fall just based on what President Trump has done from an economic perspective and what he has done from a messaging perspective. And I mean, of course, it's the Iranian people that are driving this regime change that might happen. But wouldn't that be something if this regime falls without the U.S. having to do anything from a military perspective? Could be possible.
Yeah, a number of guests that I've spoken to in recent days have said that it's entirely a possibility that it is close to falling. Well, Brian, really enjoyed speaking with you today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Don. Have a good day.
December's inflation report is in, and it looked a lot like November's. This could be inching inflation closer to the Fed's target. That's the question. The latest number ahead from the Labor Department. Iranian activists are calling on foreign leaders to support people protesting the Islamic regime. How international organizations are reacting to the ongoing violence. More news after this break.
That truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now. ShenYun.com.
All throughout your home. Appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits zero, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
The Trump administration is ending temporary protected status for thousands of Somalis in the United States. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says they'll be required to leave by March 17th. In a statement to Fox News today, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said, quote, "Temporary means temporary." She added that country conditions in Somalia have improved to the point that it no longer meets the law's requirement for temporary protected status. She also said allowing Somali nationals to remain temporarily in the U.S. is contrary to the nation's interests. Trump said in November that he was terminating deportation protections for Somalis living in Minnesota. The decision comes as federal authorities investigate reports of widespread fraud in the state. The Department of Homeland Security is facing legal challenges over immigration enforcement in Minnesota. The state is suing the Trump administration over ICE deployments. The lawsuit comes amid protests following the fatal shooting of a woman by an ICE agent. Here's more.
Minnesota is suing the federal government over a surge in ICE agents to the Twin Cities. The state is calling it unconstitutional and unlawful. The lawsuit names Secretary Kristi Noem and alleges DHS is targeting Minnesota for political reasons.
We allege that the obvious targeting of Minnesota for our diversity, for our democracy, and our differences of opinion with the federal government is a violation of the Constitution and of federal law.
The department is pushing back, saying immigration and customs enforcement is federal law enforcement and belongs everywhere that federal law applies. Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons told Fox News yesterday that ICE is present in all 50 states, and law enforcement in states like Texas and Florida cooperate with ICE instead of opposing it.
If we have ICE agents or deportation officers that are being harassed and impeded, their state law enforcement and local law enforcement actually comes to the aid of ICE, not turn down our 911 calls, not show up to a protest. You know, we only are increasing our numbers because ICE agents are getting attacked due to the lax policies that Minnesota has.
Lyons also said that Minnesota is a sanctuary state.
They don't honor our detainers, and they release criminals back into the neighborhood.
In a press release yesterday, DHS said ICE has removed child abusers, drug traffickers, and domestic violence perpetrators from Minnesota's streets. Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said the department will not let rioters or sanctuary politicians slow it down from arresting and removing the worst of the worst in Minnesota.
Illinois also unveiled a lawsuit yesterday. It accuses the administration of creating turmoil and imposing a climate of fear in the state and in the city of Chicago. And an update on alleged widespread fraud in Minnesota in an exclusive interview with Blaze TV. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says investigators have uncovered schemes far larger than expected, with illegally obtained taxpayer funds sent to overseas locations. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the key takeaways from Bessent's interview.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says Minnesota has become a blueprint for uncovering similar fraud nationwide.
The American people are the most generous people in the world. You just can't take advantage of us. When immigrants come here, you got to learn which side of the road to drive on, customs and laws to follow, and that you cannot steal from the U.S. government the way you did from your government.
Bessent says fraudsters have set up an organized scheme to game the system.
Benefits have been turned into businesses. It is a cottage industry of teaching people how to form multiple LLCs, how to game the system, how to move money around, and we'll see where the money goes.
The Treasury Secretary raised concerns about what he calls massive leakage of public assistance funds leaving the country.
If you are on public assistance and you are sending money out of the country, one of two things must be true. You are getting too much assistance because you have excess funds to feed yourself, your family, food, clothing, or you've got stolen money and you're sending that out. But in either case, money needs to stay in the U.S. or your benefits need to be cut.
Bessent touched on potential cover-ups, saying there are evidently tapes of Attorney General Keith Ellison in meetings with people who donated to him.
Them calling for political favors to stop the investigations. So we'll see. But again, I don't want to get out ahead of the investigations. It's going to be very methodical. And Chris, I can guarantee you when the bear trap snaps, we're going to get these folks.
The Treasury Secretary says his interview was originally planned at the Minnesota State Capitol, but Governor Tim Walz refused to guarantee Bessent would be provided any police security.
He is afraid of what is coming, and he's not going to be able to hide behind this curtain because we will get there, and I don't have to go in the Capitol building to investigate him. I would love for him to come to Treasury and answer some questions. I can guarantee you that he will be safe and sound then, depending on what we discover. I don't know about his future.
Bessent also discussed an alleged bribery attempt.
One of the Somali fraudsters tried to bribe a juror with $120,000. Well, it turned out she'd been given $200,000 to bribe the juror, and she skimmed $80,000.
Bessent further warned that protests obstructing federal law enforcement appear coordinated and funded.
Someone is financing them. There are safe houses that when you see the 300 people with the same laser that they're using to blind DHS agents in courthouses in Portland, someone bought those lasers. And again, what we do is follow the money.
The Treasury Secretary talked about all the luxury cars and properties bought from Minnesota to East Africa.
How the hell did this happen? How did it happen? Like, President Trump is outraged. I'm outraged. The American people should be outraged.
The Treasury has announced that IRS civil enforcement teams are auditing financial institutions suspected of facilitating the laundering of Minnesota fraud proceeds. In addition, the IRS will soon launch a dedicated task force to work alongside criminal investigators and prosecutors to recover funds and prevent fraudulent nonprofits from exploiting federal programs. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The Supreme Court heard arguments over the legality of state laws that ban males from participating in female sports. The plaintiffs, males who identify as females, say the laws violate the Constitution. Joining us to discuss is Jonathan Houlihan, President and General Counsel of Remnant Law. Jonathan, good afternoon. Always good to have you on the show. To start off, can you tell us what is the Supreme Court exactly deciding in these cases and what it's not deciding?
Thanks, Don, for having me on. So these two cases are consolidated cases from, as you articulated, state bans on transgender athletes participating in women's sports. So one is from the state of Ohio from 2020, a ban that applied to high school and college sports teams, and then a West Virginia law 2021 that applied to females in high school. So what the Supreme Court is deciding is if these bans violate the Due Process Clause of the Constitution under the 14th Amendment, and also whether or not it violates Title IX, which it was put in place by Congress in 1972 to protect women's sports and also encourage women to participate and provide equal opportunity for women in sports leagues. So it's not deciding. It's not, while it has an impact, it's not going into the pronouns and all the other things that have been discussed in policy. It's really talking about women's sports. And is sex discrimination, does that apply to gender identity? That's the bottom line that your viewers need to understand. And there's wide-ranging effects on this. I mean, there's 27 states in the United States that have similar bans. So these are the first kind of cases that have reached the court, and that's what they're going to decide if sex discrimination applies to gender identity.
Okay, so thank you for explaining that. What are some of the core arguments? Can we hear that were made by Idaho and West Virginia?
Well, they really make the state bringing this challenge is that it's fundamentally unfair to have biological males competing with females. It takes away opportunities, scholarships, awards, all of those things that were encouraged with Title IX to get women to have more participation in sports and all the great things that come with sports, right? Like leadership opportunities, college opportunities, all these things that women gain from participating in sports. And they're arguing the fundamental fairness of allowing biological males to compete in these sports teams takes away those opportunities and undercuts the entire intent and congressional intent and what Congress meant on with the definition of biological sex when they passed Title IX.
Okay, you said earlier that this will impact 27 states. So what exactly would the impact be, and how consequential will this ruling be for women's sports?
Well, I mean, it could impact, depending on the ruling, it could impact. There's a couple differences. In the Idaho case, there's some testing that has to take place in the law, gender testing, and it's what the ACLU and Lambda Legal had cited as invasive. The West Virginia case doesn't have quite the invasiveness as alleged by the ACLU, but it could impact just the whole scheme of Title IX, the federal scheme of what is biological sex, what is sex discrimination. So if the Supreme Court says yes, a ban on transgender athletes participating on women's sports team is discriminatory, it violates the Due Process Clause, you're going to see a lot of those bans get dialed back, get challenged. You're going to see, in my opinion, you're probably going to see a lot of the practical effect is you'll just see a lot of women's sports teams. There's not going to be as many opportunities as there was before because it's too challenging to continually fight these Title IX complaints through the federal government. If there's another in the next administration, if the Department of Education seeks to enforce those bans. So you're going to see long-lasting effects on women's sports teams and those opportunities, which would be a real shame to young athletes and young women that seek sports for those opportunities for scholarships, leadership opportunities, and just teamwork and building character and all the things that comes with being on part of a sports team.
Okay, so if the Supreme Court says yes or no, how immediate would the impact on the states? What is the time difference between the ruling and actual effects on the ground?
Well, you'll see it'll be June of 26 before the decision is expected. So there's obviously going to be some lag time. And then what does that actually mean to the states? So there's going to be some lag time between what the ruling says and how it's applied, because each state may have written their law differently. For example, in West Virginia, they mirrored the language from Title IX, what they defined sex as, biological sex. So you're going to see some lag time depending on the states, but it could have a huge impact just on the overarching idea of how you define biological sex. So if the Supreme Court says gender identity falls in that category of sex discrimination, and you have transgender athletes that are participating and maybe they're banned currently from these sports, I mean, they're going to have to roll all those laws back, or at least they're going to be challenged. So it could have long-lasting impact on women's sports based on the ruling. My impression is, though, I mean, this was a long hearing, right? This is 3.5 hours with the two combined cases. There was a lot of discussion on Title IX. But the conservative justices, they really seem to lean more towards deferring to the states, much like the Skrmetti case on gender on Skrmetti, which dealt with gender reassignment and all those medical things that occur with that, whether or not that's lawful. You're going to see in this case a little bit of a lag time, but either way, the conservative judges really seem to defer to the states. And my feeling is it'll be a 6-3 opinion, and they're going to uphold the bans just based on the body language, based on the questions. Justice Gorsuch, he really focused in kind of what I was talking about, those leadership opportunities, those scholarship opportunities lost, and the fundamental fairness that would be lost if these bans on transgender athletes was overturned.
Okay, just one last thing, Jonathan. Do you think the decision will be very black and white, for example, like either upholding the bans or striking them down? Or do you think we'll see something more nuanced in the language, a more specific ruling?
Well, it's in the ACLU and the Lambda Legal, they asked for that, actually. If the justices didn't uphold the ban, they asked for it at least to be sent down to develop facts further. One of the cases was an injunction. So you could see that if the bans are not upheld, you could see maybe send it back down for further development, maybe, as applied to, not due process, but as applied to Title IX claims. You could see a really nuanced claim, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be they're going to uphold the bans, in my opinion. Either way, putting that definition of sex discrimination into Title IX or any kind of biological sex, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, Congress was clear when they passed Title IX in 1972 and the subsequent amendments. They were all talking about biological sex. So to recategorize gender identity into biological sex, it would be a very frustrating thing to unpack. Just from a policy perspective, you're going to have courts be arbitrators of, hey, has this person taken enough hormones? Has this person, what does their testosterone look like? All of those kind of scientific testing things. It's unworkable in the court system. So you really have to have a clear definition and a demarcation of what that means. And biological sex, I mean, you were born a male or born a female. It's a pretty good indicator of that.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a good point to me. I'm not an expert, but really good to hear your insight today. Very insightful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom, for having me on.
A sign of economic relief as inflation cooled slightly last month. The latest Labor Department data shows consumer prices rose 0.3% in December from the month prior, the same as November. Increases at this pace over time would bring inflation closer to the Fed's 2% target. Many economists had expected inflation to jump last month after the government resumed normal data collecting after its 6-week shutdown. Many Americans are still feeling the pinch, though, after recent years of large price increases on necessities like utilities, rent, and groceries. And last month, grocery prices jumped 0.7% in December from the previous month, a sign that food costs remain high. Chilling content spreading on China's social media, but soon censored. 2 screenshots from group chats hinting at state-orchestrated human trafficking on Chinese streets, with local police and a state-run hospital allegedly involved. More about that after this break.
This is an urgent appeal from Save the Children. I saw war, bombing, shooting. I'm worried for my future.
Чую вибухи. Не знаю. І не ходжу в школу.
Conflict is raging across the world, and millions of children's lives are being devastated by war, hunger, disease. Or go online to givetosave.org to help save lives.
I debate all day. It's what I do. But there are some things that are undebatable, like your mental health, my own mental health. I was in a dark place when my brother passed away in a car accident. I've never been more devastated than the day I lost my mom. I was depressed, miserable, in ways I never imagined. I reached out and my sisters came, my pastor, my therapist. They helped me get through it. I found that the more I spoke up, the healthier my mind became. The chaos that was in me began to subside. I was more focused, clear. When you love your mind, you can go so much further. That's not up for debate. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org.
Lawmakers examined the role of offensive cyber capabilities to deter U.S. adversaries like the Chinese Communist Party from targeting U.S. critical infrastructure. Our Washington correspondent Luis Eduardo Martinez has more.
Lawmakers have recently been made aware that the Chinese Communist Party targeted them and Congress. Congressmen during a hearing today examining new strategies to deter malign actors like the Chinese Communist Party.
A Chinese state-sponsored cyber actor known as Salt Typhoon compromised email systems used by staff supporting several congressional committees. These actors are not criminals acting for profit. They are instruments of state power, and that needs to be underscored.
Democratic lawmakers urged restraint in the use of offensive cyber capabilities and called for greater investment in defensive cyber capabilities and the use of sanctions to deter malign actors.
Cyber offense is no substitute for defense and resilience. Second, cyber offense is one tool among many, including sanctions and other diplomatic levers that the United States can use. And finally, any significant change to our approach to the use of offensive cyber operations could shift global norms.
Experts from the private sector who are in the front lines of cyber warfare have endorsed a deterrence strategy based on the legal use of U.S. offensive cyber capabilities.
Deterrence requires credible offensive cyber operations that disrupt and impose cost upstream. This may be uncomfortable culturally, but unavoidable strategically. Effective offensive cyber is not reckless. It is disciplined, tested, authorized, and aligned with government policy.
Washington has failed to establish deterrence in the cyber domain, and our adversaries right now control the escalation ladder.
Historically, U.S. foreign policy has rested on deterrence, with implied escalation dominance in any domain. But that foundation has failed in the context of cyber.
Experts urge lawmakers to create a shift in mindset when it comes to the use of cyber capabilities.
It's really important to flip the risk calculus. The default answer to a proposed operation should be yes, and a naysayer should have to prove it is too risky instead of asking the operators to prove the operation is safe. Cyber tools can be very effective in disrupting an adversary. We saw some of this in Venezuela just recently, but operators need time to plan. This is not a tool that just sits on the shelf and you reach out and grab it when you need it. They need to be incorporated from the very early stages of planning.
Lastly, lawmakers were advised to create a cyber force, either a standalone branch of the armed services or within Special Operations Command. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
The foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland are expected to meet with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Today's face-to-face comes amid President Donald Trump's push to take control of the Arctic island. The Danish foreign minister and his Greenlandic counterpart had been requesting the meeting. Trump first floated the idea of a U.S. takeover of Greenland in 2019 during his first term in office. The president has argued U.S. control of the Danish territory is necessary to counter threats from Russia and China. Denmark's defense minister said he would participate in a meeting with NATO's Secretary General in Brussels next week. Greenland's foreign minister is expected to attend the meeting as well. President Trump with a message to anti-Iranian regime protesters. This as he's taking his economic message on the road, speaking at the Detroit Economic Club. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent Mari Otsu, who is in Detroit. So Mari, good afternoon. What is the latest from President Trump's remarks there?
Don, good afternoon. Yes, that's right. It was a very wide-ranging speech as usual, clocking in at a little bit over an hour. And President Trump is now reiterating what he was weighing in on Truth Social about this morning, escalating his threats to Iran, telling anti-Iranian regime protesters to keep going and that help is on its way. This is coming as protests in Iran have escalated and grown over the past few weeks. And now a U.S.-based human rights agency is reporting that there are now 2,000 deaths, 2,000 protester deaths. However, other reports are saying that medical officials think that the death toll is actually somewhere between 12,000 and at the high end 20,000. Authorities actually don't know. It's really difficult to tell since the internet has been blocked off since last Thursday. This is something that a billionaire Elon Musk is trying to now remedy, offering free Starlink in Iran as blackouts there persist. And President Trump's been repeatedly issuing strong warnings to Iran over the past few weeks, saying that if the regime kills peaceful protesters, that the United States will come to their rescue. Just a couple weeks ago, he said that the U.S. is locked and loaded and ready to go. And this is what he has to say today. Watch.
And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers, look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today.
Meanwhile, President Trump is strongly defending his tariff strategy here in Motor City as a national security strategy, warning of a crisis if the Supreme Court rules against his tariffs. Take a look.
Now, an anti-tariff person is a pro-Chinese person. The Trump tariffs have delivered us trillions of dollars of new investment, unprecedented new partnerships on minerals, rare earths, defense, and artificial intelligence, and historic levels of foreign military sales. You know, you have the Supreme Court now going to rule on whether or not we can use tariffs. Can you believe this? A case brought about by people that are China-centric, foreign-centric, but China-centric. I wouldn't want it if I was China either. You know, China's one of our biggest taxpayers right now. China.
Have you ever allowed Chinese autos into the U.S.?
Well, as you know, we have a tariff on Chinese autos, and in Europe, China's taking over the auto business, I would say, is a nice statement, but that's the way it is. And here, what is it, 100%? We have 100% tariff on any car coming in from China.
And this is all coming, of course, as President Trump announced last week that he wants to ban all large institutional investors from buying single-family homes, calling on Congress to codify that. Last week, he also announced that he's ordering his representatives to purchase $200 billion in mortgage bonds, adding that this aims to make the cost of owning a home more affordable for Americans. And now President Trump today says that he'll have more housing-related announcements to make next week, where he'll be attending and making remarks at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So we'll be looking out for that. Don, back to you.
Okay, Mari, thank you for the report. Iranian activists are calling on foreign leaders to support people protesting the Islamic regime. Pressure on the regime is increasing as international leaders keep calling for peace in Iran. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pazdar has the latest.
Be our voice and don't support our governor.
An Iranian activist in Italy calling on foreign leaders to support the Iranian people and not the regime. Last week, the Iranian regime cut off its people from the outside world by shutting off the internet and phone services. The activist says the situation has gotten so bad that even doctors can't communicate with each other. That's despite hospitals being overrun, with reports saying around 2,000 people died during the protests so far.
They don't have connection between themselves. They cannot call the other doctors and helps to come to the hospital.
The United Nations is weighing in as well. A spokesperson for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights criticizes Iran's security forces for targeting protesters.
The killing of peaceful demonstrators must stop. The labeling of protesters as terrorists to justify violence against them is unacceptable.
The foreign policy chief for the European Union says the Iranian regime could fall within a short period of time, similar to how the Assad regime in Syria fell recently. The EU plans to keep supporting the Iranian people.
We are also putting more sanctions on the ones who are using the violence against the peaceful protesters to show that we are condemning these actions.
She added that change in Iran primarily has to come from the Iranian people. Arian Pazdar, NTD News.
Staying in the Middle East, the Trump administration has designated 3 branches of the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist organizations. The Treasury and State Departments announced the actions today affecting Muslim Brotherhood chapters in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt. The Trump administration said these organizations pose a risk to the U.S. and American interests. President Trump ordered the designation last month. The 3 branches and their members now face U.S. sanctions. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement, quote, "The United States will use all available tools to deprive these Muslim Brotherhood chapters of the resources to engage in or support terrorism." Jordan and Egypt have also banned the Muslim Brotherhood in their countries. The U.S. allies in the region, such as Qatar and Turkey, are more tolerant of the organization. A New York City Council employee was detained by ICE during a routine immigration appointment on Long Island yesterday. The Department of Homeland Security says he was there illegally and did not have work authorization. Council Speaker Julie Menin said the employee, a Venezuelan national, works as a data analyst and has a work visa. She called the detainment government overreach. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin disputed those remarks and said he has a criminal record, including for assault. In a post on X, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani called the arrest an assault on democracy, on New York City, and on its values. He called for the employee's release and said he would continue to monitor the situation. Former President Bill Clinton could soon face contempt of Congress proceedings. The Republican chair of the House Oversight Committee says he's starting that process. That's after Clinton failed to attend a hearing this morning on sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Here's committee chair James Comer.
I think it's very disappointing. As a result of Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner, we will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress.
A spokesperson for the former president has said that Clinton knew nothing about Epstein's crimes. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has a similar deposition scheduled for tomorrow. Her attorney says she won't show up either. Lawyers for the Clintons are calling subpoenas from the committee invalid, saying they're not legally enforceable. New concerns over a cover-up linking the Chinese Communist Party with live organ harvesting may have surfaced. Last week, 2 screenshots from a chat group went viral on Chinese social media before they were censored. The content in the chat has alarmed many Chinese citizens. If true, it would be the latest indication that Chinese police and hospitals are conducting operations targeting people on the streets for organ harvesting. NTD's Flora Hua has the package.
The 2 screenshots quickly went viral after the author posted them on China's version of TikTok, Douyin, on Monday. After translating the messages into English, we dubbed the conversation for listeners.
She's buying durian at the fruit stand.
Tell XYZ and the others that once she finishes the purchase, they should detain her inside the apartment building and forcibly bring her back directly in an ambulance. Don't let her go home at all.
Okay.
Judging by her physique, her body fat percentage is likely high.
You guys want to take her?
Sure. The DNA anti-rejection tests have passed. Jilin University now has liver and kidney recipients.
Has the local police station been contacted?
I just finished contacting them.
When asked whether this means local police were involved in kidnapping the woman, the post author replied with a confirmation. What's more, the reference to Jilin University in the chat likely points to one of the university's 2 affiliated hospitals. A US-based human rights group that has investigated China's transplant industry for decades has listed both hospitals as highly suspected of engaging in large-scale live organ harvesting. The group was the first one to report that Falun Gong practitioners in China have been the primary target for their organs. The Chinese Communist Party has been brutally persecuting the faith group since 1999. But in recent years, the scale of organ harvesting victims appears to have grown, with increasing media reports of young people going missing in China. Now, both the screenshots and the whistleblower's Douyin account have been completely removed from the platform by Chinese regulators. The censorship has only made the claims more convincing to many, but the story has still left digital footprints. Search records on the platform, such as "What happened to the woman kidnapped?" show that many users tried to learn the fate of the woman mentioned in the chat. Flora Hua, NTD News.
The competition for the 2028 Olympic Games starts tomorrow, but not for athletes, for any possible spectators who want to watch the games. Lottery ticket registration starts tomorrow. More news after.
So at the age of 5, I was sexually molested. I had my first child at the age of 15 and became homeless at the age of 16. The scariest part about not having a place to live was having a child and not having a place to live and not knowing where our meal was going to come from and where we're going to sleep. To be homeless as a teen, I didn't ask for that.
No young person should ever have to worry about having a safe place to sleep at night, or a warm meal to eat, or whether anyone cares about them. 1 in 10 young adults will experience a form of homelessness this year, and that's unacceptable. But the good news is there is an organization making a big difference, Covenant House.
Call or go online now. For a gift of only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can provide hot meals, safe shelter, medical care, and love to more than 2,000 young people who sleep at a Covenant House every night.
For over 50 years, Covenant House has been helping youth in crisis.
It was pretty tough. But Covenant House really helped me and really helped mold me into the woman I am today.
Call or go online right now to safeplacetosleep.org with your gift of just $19 a month. With your monthly donation, you'll receive this soft, comforting blanket as a reminder of the warmth and safety your gift will provide a young person tonight.
I have no words to express how Covenant House changed my life, They gave me the love that I needed. They just really genuinely just wanted to help me succeed, and I'm succeeding.
Your $19 monthly gift is urgently needed to reach other young people who are facing unimaginable situations. Call or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
Your support makes the work of Covenant House possible. Thank you for caring.
I can't get a hold of my mom.
I'm sure it's nothing.
I've called her 5 times.
I'm sure she's fine.
Is Grandma okay? Help! I've fallen and I can't get up.
Don't worry, ma'am. We're sending help right now.
Hello?
Hello, this is Life Alert. Your mother had an emergency, and we dispatched paramedics to her home.
Oh my gosh, what happened?
She had a fall, but don't worry. She is safe, and the paramedics are helping her right now.
Thank you.
Life Alert saves a life every 11 minutes. With one simple touch of a button, Life Alert sends help immediately. Whether it's to report a fall, a medical emergency, or an intruder, Life Alert sends first responders fast.
For a free brochure, call 800-382-9846. 800-382-9846. That's 800-382-9846.
The Democratic National Committee is planning to spend millions of dollars on voter registration efforts. DNC Chair Ken Martin said his party has to do work to bring in new voters.
Well, it's really important to identify that we have a big challenge. There's a real crisis right now as it relates to voter registration in this country. Between 2020 and 2024, we actually lost about 2.1 million voters, Democratic voters, in terms of registration, and the Republicans gained around 2.4 million, right? And as a result, they have a significant advantage right now throughout the country over Democrats in terms of partisan voter registration. And so it's a crisis.
The DNC will kick off the initiative in Arizona and Nevada with at least $2 million for training organizers. The committee says its plan will focus on drawing in young people, people of color, and individuals without college degrees. The program will also coordinate national events and push state parties to compete to register new voters.
And I think one of the big lessons for us as Democrats is to make sure that we bring people into the conversation, right? And that means that we should focus in on the thing that connects everyone, right? Whether you're a farmer in southern Minnesota or a miner up on the Iron Range in northern Minnesota or a new refugee in the Twin Cities, the thing that connects all of them is the fact that they all believe in the American dream.
More than 15,000 pounds of drugs seized through busts in Venezuela. Today, the Venezuelan Interior Minister reported that they seized the drugs in the southern state of Bolivar. The minister said there was about 15,000 pounds of drugs, plus individual wrappings for marijuana and cocaine. He added that the 2 boats were also seized. The Interior Minister said the raids were part of Operation Soledad from earlier this month. To date, the minister says Venezuela has seized nearly 16,000 pounds of drugs. On your mark, get set. Tomorrow, registration opens up for the chance to score tickets for the Summer Games. The 2028 Olympic Games will be hosted by Los Angeles. Online LA28 says starting tomorrow, people can create a profile to enter the lottery ticket system. This is how people will get the chance to buy seats. Later this year, people will receive an email telling them if they snagged a time slot for tickets. The San Francisco Chronicle is reporting that tickets to individual events will start at $28. The majority of the events will take place in the Westwood area near downtown Los Angeles, as well as neighboring cities Inglewood, Venice, and Long Beach. A dictator captured and a communist ally exposed. How former Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro's fall could push Cuba closer to collapse. More news after this.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. See it at least once in your lifetime. Shen Yun. Get tickets now. ShenYun.com.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan Green Vegetable Omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Looking for a healthy and smooth-tasting brew? Drop by Days Coffee Roasters today and explore our wide selection of specialty-grade, small-batch roasted coffee. Home to North America's first enzyme-fermented coffee, we source a wide selection of specialty-grade coffee beans from around the world, and our baristas are ready to craft your customized brew. Visit Days Coffee at 28 North Street, Middletown, New York. Come experience a brew like no other.
(911), where's your emergency?
I get shot in my best friend on an accident. Oh my God.
This is NTD Newsroom, and I'm Don Ma. President Trump escalating his threats to Iran as the death toll of Iranian regime protesters, anti-Iranian regime protesters, rises. This as the president warns of a crisis if the Supreme Court rules against his tariffs. Somalia loses its temporary protected status, affecting thousands of Somali nationals in the U.S. Jason Blair reports. The Supreme Court today heard oral arguments over whether restrictions on transgender athletes in girls' sports violate civil rights law. The fate of girls and women's sports may rest in a Supreme Court decision. The CCP continues to preposition assets within the U.S. cyber domain ahead of a potential conflict. Lawmakers are demanding a more offensive posture to deter the CCP from continuing its malign activities. A dictator captured and a communist ally exposed. How former Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro's fall could push Cuba closer to collapse. Chilling content spreading on China's social media, but soon censored. 2 screenshots from group chats hinting at state-orchestrated human trafficking on Chinese streets, with local police and a state-run hospital allegedly involved.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
President Trump with a message to anti-Iranian regime protesters. This as he's taking his economic message on the road, speaking at the Detroit Economic Club. NTD's Washington correspondent Mario Otsu, who's in Detroit, has the latest from President Trump's remarks.
That's right. It was a very wide-ranging speech as usual, clocking in at a little bit over an hour. And President Trump is now reiterating what he was weighing in on Truth Social about this morning, escalating his threats to Iran, telling anti-Iranian regime protesters to keep going and that help is on its way. This is coming as protests in Iran have escalated and grown over the past few weeks. And now a U.S.-based human rights agency is reporting that there are now 2,000 deaths, 2,000 protester deaths. However, other reports are saying that medical officials think that the death toll is actually somewhere between 12,000 and at the high end 20,000. Authorities actually don't know. It's really difficult to tell since the internet has been blocked off since last Thursday. This is something that a billionaire Elon Musk is trying to now remedy, offering free Starlink in Iran as blackouts there persist. And President Trump's been repeatedly issuing strong warnings to Iran over the past few weeks, saying that if the regime kills peaceful protesters, that the United States will come to their rescue. Just a couple weeks ago, he said that the U.S. is locked and loaded and ready to go. And this is what he has to say today. Watch.
And by the way, to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers, look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. And I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today.
Meanwhile, President Trump is strongly defending his tariff strategy here in Motor City as a national security strategy, warning of a crisis if the Supreme Court rules against his tariffs. Take a look.
An anti-tariff person is a pro-Chinese person. The Trump tariffs have delivered us trillions of dollars of new investment, unprecedented new partnerships on minerals, rare earths, defense, and artificial intelligence, and historic levels of foreign military sales. You know, you have the Supreme Court now going to rule on whether or not we can use tariffs. Can you believe this? A case brought about by people that are China-centric, foreign-centric, but China-centric. I wouldn't want it if I was China either. You know, China's one of our biggest taxpayers right now. China.
Have you ever allowed Chinese autos into the U.S.?
Well, as you know, we have a tariff on Chinese autos, and in Europe, China's taking over the auto business, I would say is a nice statement, but that's the way it is. And here, what is it, 100%? We have 100% tariff on any car coming in from China.
And this is all coming, of course, as President Trump announced last week that he wants to ban all large institutional investors from buying single-family homes, calling on Congress to codify that. Last week, he also announced that he's ordering his representatives to purchase $200 billion in mortgage bonds, adding that this aims to make the cost of owning a home more affordable for Americans. And now President Trump today says that he'll have more housing-related announcements to make next week, where he'll be attending and making remarks at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. So we'll be looking out for that.
Iranian activists are calling on foreign leaders to support people protesting the Islamic regime. Pressure is on the regime increasing as international leaders keep calling for peace in Iran. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has the latest.
Be our voice and don't support our governor.
An Iranian activist in Italy calling on foreign leaders to support the Iranian people and not the regime. Last week, the Iranian regime cut off its people from the outside world by shutting off the internet and phone services. The activist says the situation has gotten so bad that even doctors can't communicate with each other. That's despite hospitals being overrun, with reports saying around 2,000 people died during the protests so far.
They don't have connection between themselves. They cannot call the other doctors and helps to come to the hospital.
The United Nations is weighing in as well. A spokesperson for the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights criticizes Iran's security forces for targeting protesters.
The killing of peaceful demonstrators must stop. The labeling of protesters as terrorists to justify violence against them is unacceptable.
The foreign policy chief for the European Union says the Iranian regime could fall within a short period of time, similar to how the Assad regime in Syria fell recently. The EU plans to keep supporting the Iranian people.
We are also putting more sanctions on the ones who are using the violence against the peaceful protesters to show that we are condemning these actions.
She added that change in Iran primarily has to come from the Iranian people. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Staying in the Middle East, the Trump administration has designated 3 branches of the Muslim Brotherhood as terrorist groups. The Treasury and State Departments announced the actions today affecting Muslim Brotherhood chapters in Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt. The Trump administration said these organizations pose a risk to the U.S. American interests. President Trump ordered the designation last month. The 3 branches and their members now face U.S. sanctions. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said in a statement, quote, "The United States will use all available tools to deprive these Muslim Brotherhood chapters of the resources to engage in or support terrorism." Jordan and Egypt have also banned the Muslim Brotherhood in their countries. Other U.S. allies in the region, such as Qatar and Turkey, are more tolerant of the organization. December's numbers showing the inflation rate is cooling down. We hear more analysis about the U.S. economy right after this break. Don't go away.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
I'm Amy Grant, and I want to talk to you from my heart about the heart. I would have been the last person on the list to say this woman has a problem with her heart. So no, there was nothing about my life that said, you have a ticking time bomb in your chest. But I did. I wound up in the office of a cardiologist because I was there with my husband. And at the tail end of that, the cardiologist looked at me and said, I want to see you. No one was more surprised than I was to learn I was living with a rare heart condition. He said, Amy, this condition, you'll be fine, and then catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life. And I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. That's why I'm asking you to join me and become a monthly donor to the American Heart Association. Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anybody. Heart disease is America's #1 killer, but your support can save your life or the life of someone you love. Give $19 a month with your credit card and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives like mine. I'm grateful for the American Heart Association. Their research gave me more time to do the things I love with the people I love. So listen to your heart. I'm here today because I did. Call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor. Give this holiday season and your first month's gift will be matched. Thank you.
The Trump administration revokes temporary protected status for thousands of Somalis living in the U.S., saying that Somalia no longer meets the law's requirement for TPS. And the Department of Homeland Security calls on Minnesota Governor Tim Walz to honor 1,300 ICE arrest detainers. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
Temporary protection status for Somali nationals comes to an end after a Tuesday decision by the Trump administration. This affects 2,471 Somalis currently under TPS and another 1,383 in the country with pending TPS applications. They have until March 16th to leave the country. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says temporary means temporary. Country conditions in Somalia have improved to the point that it no longer meets the law's requirement for temporary protection status. Allowing Somali nationals to remain temporarily in the United States is contrary to our national interests. We are putting Americans first. Under federal law, TPS is for people who are unable to return to their home countries due to conditions like a civil war. TPS has been in place for Somalia since 1991. It was last extended by the Biden administration until March 17, 2026. The action by the Trump administration is in the midst of ongoing long-term investigations into alleged fraud linked to Somali nationals that was recently thrust into the national spotlight. And the DHS has issued a public statement to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey demanding that they honor 1,360 ICE arrest detainers, saying that these illegal immigrants are in state custody. In the statement, the DHS says 470 criminal illegal aliens have been released back onto Minnesota streets since President Trump took office. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin says, why are DHS law enforcement surging to Minnesota and other sanctuary cities? It's because Minnesota law enforcement won't let us in their jails.
Those people were in Minneapolis's custody, and yet they were released back onto the streets. That's why we're there. That's why we have to be there.
The DHS says the department is seeing a, quote, coordinated campaign of violence against our law enforcement across the country.
I mentioned those vehicle rammings before. Those vehicle rammings where these individuals are weaponizing a vehicle, ramming them into our law enforcement officers or their vehicles is up 3,200%.
The DHS has also highlighted some of the, quote, worst of the worst criminal illegal immigrants that were arrested in Minnesota. Jason Blair, NTD News.
A New York City Council employee was detained by ICE during a routine immigration appointment on Long Island yesterday. The Department of Homeland Security says he was there illegally and did not have work authorization. Council Speaker Julie Menin said the employee, a Venezuelan national, works as a data analyst and has a work visa. She called the department the detainment government overreach. DHS Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin disputed those remarks and said he has a criminal record, including for assault. In a post on X, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani called the arrest an assault on democracy, on New York City, and on values. He called for the employee's release and said he would continue to monitor the situation. A sign of economic relief as inflation cooled slightly last month. The latest Labor Department data shows consumer prices rose 0.3% in December from the month prior, the same as November. Increases at this pace over time would bring inflation closer to the Fed's 2% target. Many economists had expected inflation to jump last month after the government resumed normal data collecting after its 6-week shutdown. Many Americans are still feeling the pinch, though. After recent years of large price increases on necessities like utilities, rent, and groceries. And last month, grocery prices jumped 0.7% in December from the previous month, a sign that food costs remain high. President Trump spoke at the Detroit Economic Club about tariffs and the economy after touring a Ford truck plant in nearby Dearborn. To discuss this, we're bringing in Tim Dozier, Executive Director of Unleash Prosperity Now. Tim, thank you for joining us today. President Trump cited record stock market highs, more than $18 trillion in investments, as evidence that America's economy is thriving. So, Tim, you're from Detroit. What are you hearing from workers in Michigan about Trump's policies on bringing back manufacturing?
Well, it's always great to talk about my hometown. I'm very proud to be from Detroit and the legacy that Detroit has left on this world. And I'm going to tell you something, it means a lot, because after an entire administration that said you must make EVs, you must make cars that hardly even drive in a state that's so cold in the wintertime, you're not sure if you can get back from work once you're done with it. And so once you are through with that, with the administration saying you must make EVs, you must make EVs, and then you lose billions of dollars, it's great to have a president come in and saying, we're gaining it back. We are going to set the stage for you to be able to not only get the money back, but grow and expand and make products that Americans and the entire world wants. And that is reclaiming the greatness of the great city of Detroit.
Okay, so other than EVs, which is very important on its own, what do workers there want to see as well? What do they hope for?
Well, look, I think it's more predictability and more of an ability to say, look, now we know what the trade deals look like. That's a big thing. There was a lot of uncertainty at the beginning of the year. How is this going to phase out? What is the final number going to be? How do we do this? Are they going to extend the Trump tax cuts? Is the deregulatory agenda going to be a worthwhile endeavor in the federal government? And I think that as we've seen throughout last year and now starting this year, I think the workers are seeing that predictability. I think the people who are hiring for these jobs see that they can actually count on an economy growing and and money and investment coming into the U.S. so they can make those hires, they can make those capital expenditures. And let me say something else for Detroit. You know, we talk a lot about what it's going to look like for the jobs numbers. Well, remember, we grew at 5.4% growth in the last quarter. And yet we've sort of had this slower job hiring. Make no mistake about it. Automation is key. We are seeing robots. We are seeing AI fill the gaps and make us even more productive, even though we're figuring out the labor part.
Can you just expand a bit more on why this reliability or predictability is so important for people there? I mean, what is at stake otherwise? How important is it for them to have a manufacturing job?
Well, look, remember, every business has to plan for the future. There's no question about it. And if one person comes in and says you're doing EVs and yet nobody is buying them and you're mandated to do it, you're either going to go out of business or you're going to go to the person that mandated that you had to make those EVs and say, please bail me out so I don't have to close shop and put all these people out of business. And I think that's the stability that President Trump is bringing back to the city of Detroit. And I think that's why we talk about the employees and the management being very, very glad that he's there. They understand that Trump is putting America first. They understand that across that border in Canada, you know, they have protectionist policies over there. And they see President Trump sort of leveling that playing field. And when you talk about predictability, you've had a lot of people come in and say, hey, we're going to do free trade. We're going to do free trade. And then you see Canada start and Mexico start, them building there. And so the workers there say, hey, what gives? And I think President Trump is addressing that head on.
Okay, Tim, you said earlier that people can now count on the economy growing. I want to ask you, what are some of the policies, Trump's policies, that we're not seeing in full effect just yet, but are set to come into effect months or years into the future?
Well, it's already happening. We have just brand new numbers that we put together, that real median household income. That's the middle of the pack. Those are the average everyday workers that go to the factory in Detroit, in Indiana, in Illinois. Those median incomes are up $2,500 since President Trump took office. That is a big deal. And the reason, in part, beyond the one big beautiful bill that we talk about, is this deregulatory agenda that we see. Under the Biden administration, we did a study that said that the average family is going to pay an additional $50,000 in a regulatory burden. That's the EV car mandates. That's the environmental mandates. Those are the mandates that come from unelected bureaucrats here in Washington, D.C. We see those being removed. We see those being written off into history. And the one of the best things is it's not just in the administrative agencies that we're seeing this. We saw the Supreme Court overturn what they called the Chevron deference, which means, hey, we're just going to defer to the agency. We're not going to make them do a cost-benefit analysis on regulatory costs. That's been removed by the Supreme Court. And so now there's real business taking place in D.C. You got to fight for the regulations. Now you have to. And before, they just added them.
Okay, Tim, just one final thing. And we heard President Trump at the speech in the Economic Club meeting in Detroit that he brought in $18 trillion in investment into the U.S. over just a one-year period, whereas the Biden administration, President Trump says, only brought in $1 trillion over a 4-year period. How was he able to do this, President Trump?
Well, I think that you see the word that he says is his favorite word. And by the way, I'm not a fan of tariffs. I think tariffs in general raise the price, especially if they're not greeted by opening of markets. That's what President Trump has been able to do. He's been able to use tariffs as a negotiating tactic to say, hey, you're not letting us sell you, corn. You're not letting us sell you corn. You're going to have to pay a tariff if you want to do business with the United States of America. And so then the countries say, okay, well, we don't want to pay the tariff, so you will open up our markets to your corn. President Trump has been doing that for many different things that we produce here in the United States of America, opening up that international buy on American goods. It is becoming a very, very, very effective tool in order to generate investment in this country. And you know what else he says? He says you don't have to pay a tariff if you build things here. Now, what I want to say is this, just really quick. President Trump says $18 trillion. Those are commitments. We haven't realized all $18 trillion of that yet. That money just hasn't floated in yet. That's on the good word of the people that are, want to do business in America, saying we are planning on doing this. We are doing this. So President Trump, I think, is going to spend the rest of his term ensuring that we get all 18 trillion of that into the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, I think he will try to do that, and we'll wait and see, and we'll report it to our viewers when it happens. $18 trillion. Okay, Tim, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Big number.
Yep. The Supreme Court today heard oral arguments over whether restrictions on transgender athletes in girls' sports violate civil rights law. The fate of girls and women's sports may rest in a Supreme Court decision. More news after this.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Abused youth often feel safer on the street. Now, more than ever, that's the most dangerous place of all. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming, and no young person is ever turned away. Please call or go online now with your gift of $19 a month to help a young person. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Your gift will show them they're loved. Homeless young people are afraid and alone with nowhere else to turn.
You want to know that there's somewhere you can go that's safe. So the Covenant House did that for us.
Please call now with your gift of $19 a month. We'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. Please don't wait. Your gift is the lifeline a young person needs now. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org. Thank you for saving precious lives.
I am so glad you ladies are here. You each have your own rooms. Thank you. Get settled in. I'll call you for dinner. adopting teen sisters, it's a lot. Girls, you're gonna be late. You want breakfast? No thanks, we're good. They're always in their own world. Did you get there? Twice the work. Twice the surprises. Just try it. But if you think of it that way, they're also twice as fulfilling. I think you should ask her yourself.
Is it okay to call you Mom?
Of course you can.
The Democratic National Committee is planning to spend millions of dollars on voter registration efforts. DNC Chair Ken Martin said his party has work to do to bring in new voters.
Well, it's really important to identify that we have a big challenge. There's a real crisis right now as it relates to voter registration in this country. Between 2020 and 2024, we actually lost about 2.1 million voters, Democratic voters, in terms of registration, and the Republicans gained around 2.4 million, right? And as a result, they have a significant advantage right now throughout the country over Democrats in terms of partisan voter registration. And so it's a crisis.
The DNC will kick off the initiative in Arizona and Nevada with at least $2 million for training organizers. The committee says its plan will focus on drawing in young people, people of color, and individuals without college degrees. The program will also coordinate national events and push state parties to compete to register new voters.
And I think one of the big lessons for us as Democrats is to make sure that we bring people into the conversation, right? And that means that we should focus in on the thing that connects everyone, right? Whether you're a farmer in southern Minnesota or a miner up on the Iron Range in northern Minnesota or a new refugee in the Twin Cities, the thing that connects all of them is the fact that they all believe in the American dream.
And the Supreme Court today heard oral arguments over 2 states imposing restrictions on transgender athletes in women's sports. States are arguing that biology matters in women's sports. NTD's Arlene Richards has more.
Attorneys for Idaho and West Virginia argued on Tuesday that their states' laws treat all men and all women equally and don't classify on the basis of gender identity.
Idaho's law classifies on the basis of sex because sex is what matters in sports. It correlates strongly with countless athletic advantages like size, muscle mass, bone mass, and heart and lung capacity. Tragically, but not surprisingly, male athletes have even injured female athletes in many sports. If women don't have their own competitions, they won't be able to compete.
The states appeared before the Supreme Court in an effort to overturn lower court rulings that say laws restricting transgender athletes in girls' sports discriminate based on sex. Transgender athletes in both states argue their right to compete on the girls' teams is guaranteed by Title IX, a landmark civil rights law that prohibits sex-based discrimination. They say their gender identity matches the sex category of the law. Idaho Solicitor General said gender identity doesn't matter in sports, and the purpose of Idaho's law is to preserve women's equal opportunity.
Denying special treatment isn't classifying on the basis of transgender status. It's consciously choosing not to.
Justice Sonia Sotomayor pushed back on his characterization of the case.
Who identifies as a female, but it's a male, is being excluded from a female sport, correct?
That's correct.
All right. By its nature, that's a sex classification.
Justice Neil Gorsuch asked the big question about whether transgender people should be considered a legally protected class. The Idaho plaintiff has decided to drop the case, but the state of Idaho wanted the Supreme Court to decide the case anyway. The second case the court heard on Tuesday out of West Virginia deals with many of the same issues. Chief Justice Roberts asked the Idaho attorney if a win in favor of the plaintiffs could have wider effects.
My point was more that how we approach the situation of looking at it not as boys versus girls, but whether or not there should be an exception with respect to the definition of girls. That would, if we adopted that, that would have to apply across the board and not simply to the area of athletics.
Outside, demonstrators gathered ahead of the arguments. In past cases, the highest court has ruled against transgender people. For example, it allowed the Trump administration to temporarily ban transgender people from the military and upheld a state ban on gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The court's final ruling in Tuesday's case could decide the fate of women's sports in the future. Arlene Richards, NTD News.
The Supreme Court heard arguments over the legality of state laws that ban males from participating in female sports. The plaintiffs, males who identify as females, say the laws violate the Constitution. Joining us to discuss is Jonathan Houlihan, President and General Counsel of Remnant Law. Jonathan, good afternoon. Always good to have you on the show. To start off, can you tell us what is the Supreme Court exactly deciding in these cases and what it's not deciding?
Thanks, Don, for having me on. So these two cases are consolidated cases from, as you articulated, state bans on transgender athletes participating in women's sports. So one is from the state of Ohio from 2020, a ban that applied to high school and college sports teams, and then a West Virginia law 2021 that applied to females in high school. So what the Supreme Court is deciding is if these bans violate the Due Process Clause of the Constitution under the 14th Amendment, and also whether or not it violates Title IX, which it was put in place by Congress in 1972 to protect women's sports and also encourage women to participate and provide equal opportunity for women in sports leagues. So it's not deciding. It's not, while it has an impact, it's not going into the pronouns and all the other things that have been discussed in policy. It's really talking about women's sports. And is sex discrimination, does that apply to gender identity? That's the bottom line that your viewers need to understand. And there's wide-ranging effects on this. I mean, there's 27 states in the United States that have similar bans. So these are the first kind of cases that have reached the court, and that's what they're going to decide if sex discrimination applies to gender identity.
Okay, so thank you for explaining that. What are some of the core arguments? Can we hear that were made by Idaho and West Virginia?
Well, they really make the state bringing this challenge is that it's fundamentally unfair to have biological males competing with females. It takes away opportunities, scholarships, awards, all of those things that were encouraged with Title IX to get women to have more participation in sports and all the great things that come with sports, right? Like leadership opportunities, college opportunities, all these things that women gain from participating in sports. And they're arguing the fundamental fairness of allowing biological males to compete in these sports teams takes away those opportunities and undercuts the entire intent and congressional intent and what Congress meant on with the definition of biological sex when they passed Title IX.
Okay, you said earlier that this will impact 27 states. So what exactly would the impact be, and how consequential will this ruling be for women's sports?
Well, I mean, it could impact, depending on the ruling, it could impact. There's a couple differences. In the Idaho case, there's some testing that has to take place in the law, gender testing, and it's what the ACLU and Lambda Legal had cited as invasive. The West Virginia case doesn't have quite the invasiveness as alleged by the ACLU, but it could impact just the whole scheme of Title IX, the federal scheme of what is biological sex, what is sex discrimination. So if the Supreme Court says, yes, a ban on transgender athletes participating on women's sports team is discriminatory, it violates the Due Process Clause, you're going to see a lot of those bans get dialed back, get challenged. You're going to see, in my opinion, you're probably going to see a lot of the practical effect is you'll just see a lot of women's sports teams. There's not going to be as many opportunities as there was before because it's too challenging to continually fight these Title IX complaints through the federal government. If there's another in the next administration, if the Department of Education seeks to enforce those bans. So you're going to see long-lasting effects on women's sports teams and those opportunities, which would be a real shame to young athletes and young women that seek sports for those opportunities for scholarships, leadership opportunities, and just teamwork and building character and all the things that comes with being on part of a sports team.
Okay, so if the Supreme Court says yes or no, how immediate would the impact on the states? What is the time difference between the ruling and actual effects on the ground?
Well, you'll see it'll be June of 26 before the decision is expected. So there's obviously going to be some lag time. And then what does that actually mean to the states? So there's going to be some lag time between what the ruling says and how it's applied, because each state may have written their law differently. For example, in West Virginia, they mirrored the language from Title IX, what they defined sex as, biological sex. So you're going to see some lag time depending on the states, but it could have a huge impact just on the overarching idea of how you define biological sex. So if the Supreme Court says gender identity falls in that category of sex discrimination, and you have transgender athletes that are participating and maybe they're banned currently from these sports, I mean, they're going to have to roll all those laws back, or at least they're going to be challenged. So it could have long-lasting impact on women's sports based on the ruling. My impression is, though, I mean, this was a long hearing, right? This is 3.5 hours with the two combined cases. There was a lot of discussion on Title IX. But the conservative justices, they really seem to lean more towards deferring to the states, much like the Scrimetti case on gender on Scrimetti, which dealt with gender reassignment and all those medical things that occur with that, whether or not that's lawful. You're going to see in this case a little bit of a lag time, but either way, the conservative judges really seem to defer to the states. And my feeling is it'll be a 6-3 opinion, and they're going to uphold the bans just based on the body language, based on the questions. Justice Gorsuch, he really focused in kind of what I was talking about, those leadership opportunities, those scholarship opportunities lost, and the fundamental fairness that would be lost if these bans on transgender athletes was overturned.
Okay, just one last thing, Jonathan. Do you think the decision will be very black and white, for example, like either upholding the bans or striking them down? Or do you think we'll see something more nuanced in the language, a more specific ruling?
Well, it's in the ACLU and the Lambda Legal, they asked for that, actually. If the justices didn't uphold the ban, they asked for it at least to be sent down to develop facts further. One of the cases was an injunction. So you could see that if the bans are not upheld, you could see maybe send it back down for further development, maybe, as applied to, not due process, but as applied to Title IX claims. You could see a really nuanced claim, but at the end of the day, I think it's going to be they're going to uphold the bans, in my opinion. Either way, putting that definition of sex discrimination into Title IX or any kind of biological sex, I don't think it's going to work. I mean, Congress was clear when they passed Title IX in 1972 and the subsequent amendments. They were all talking about biological sex. So to recategorize gender identity into biological sex, it would be a very frustrating thing to unpack. Just from a policy perspective, you're going to have courts be arbitrators of, hey, has this person taken enough hormones? Has this person, what does their testosterone look like? All of those kind of scientific testing things. It's unworkable in the court system. So you really have to have a clear definition and a demarcation of what that means. And biological sex, I mean, you were born a male or born a female. It's a pretty good indicator of that.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a good point to me. I'm not an expert, but really good to hear your insight today. Very insightful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom, for having me on.
Lawmakers examined the role of offensive cyber capabilities to deter U.S. adversaries like the Chinese Communist Party from targeting U.S. critical infrastructure. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Eduardo Martinez, has more.
Lawmakers have recently been made aware that the Chinese Communist Party targeted them and Congress. Congressmen during a hearing today examining new strategies to deter malign actors like the Chinese Communist Party.
A Chinese state-sponsored cyber actor known as Salt Typhoon compromised email systems used by staff supporting several congressional committees. These actors are not criminals acting for profit. They are instruments of state power, and that needs to be underscored.
Democratic lawmakers urged restraint in the use of offensive cyber capabilities and called for greater investment in defensive cyber capabilities and the use of sanctions to deter malign actors.
Cyber offense is no substitute for defense and resilience. Second, cyber offense is one tool among many, including sanctions and other diplomatic levers that the United States can use. And finally, any significant change to our approach to the use of offensive cyber operations could shift global norms.
Experts from the private sector who are in the front lines of cyber warfare have endorsed a deterrence strategy based on the legal use of U.S. offensive cyber capabilities.
Deterrence requires credible offensive cyber operations that disrupt and impose cost upstream. This may be uncomfortable culturally, but unavoidable strategically. Effective offensive cyber is not reckless. It is disciplined, tested, authorized, and aligned with government policy.
Washington has failed to establish deterrence in the cyber domain, and our adversaries right now control the escalation ladder. Historically, U.S. foreign policy has rested on deterrence, with implied escalation dominance in any domain. But that foundation has failed in the context of cyber.
Experts urge lawmakers to create a shift in mindset when it comes to the use of cyber capabilities.
It's really important to flip the risk calculus. The default answer to a proposed operation should be yes, and a naysayer should have to prove it is too risky instead of asking the operators to prove the operation is safe. Cyber tools can be very effective in disrupting an adversary. We saw some of this in Venezuela just recently, but operators need time to plan. This is not a tool that just sits on the shelf and you reach out and grab it when you need it. They need to be incorporated from the very early stages of planning.
Lastly, lawmakers were advised to create a cyber force, either a standalone branch of the armed services or within Special Operations Command. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
More than 15,000 pounds of drugs seized through busts in Venezuela. Today, the Venezuelan Interior Minister reported that they seized the drugs in the southern state of Bolivar. The minister said there was about 15,000 pounds of drugs, plus individual wrappings for marijuana and cocaine. He added that 2 boats were also seized. The Interior Minister said that the raids were part of Operation Soledad from earlier this month. To date, the minister says Venezuela has seized nearly 16,000 pounds of drugs. New concerns over a cover-up linking the Chinese Communist Party with live organ harvesting may have surfaced. Last week, 2 screenshots from a chat group went viral on Chinese social media before they were censored. The content in the chat has alarmed many Chinese citizens. If true, it would be the latest indication that Chinese police and hospitals are conducting operations targeting people on the streets for organ harvesting. NTD's Flora Hua has the story.
The 2 screenshots quickly went viral after the author posted them on China's version of TikTok, Douyin, on Monday. After translating the messages into English, we dubbed the conversation for listeners.
She's buying durian at the fruit stand.
Tell XYZ and the others that once she finishes the purchase, they should detain her inside the apartment building and forcibly bring her back directly in an ambulance. Don't let her go home at all.
Okay.
Judging by her physique, her body fat percentage is likely high.
You guys want to take her?
Sure. The DNA anti-rejection tests have passed. Jilin University now has liver and kidney recipients.
Has the local police station been contacted?
I just finished contacting them.
When asked whether this means local police were involved in kidnapping the woman, the post author replied with a confirmation. What's more, the reference to Jilin University in the chat likely points to one of the university's 2 affiliated hospitals. A U.S.-based human rights group that has investigated China's transplant industry for decades has listed both hospitals as highly suspected of engaging in large-scale live organ harvesting. The group was the first one to report that Falun Gong practitioners in China have been the primary target for their organs. The Chinese Communist Party has been brutally persecuting the faith group since 1999. But in recent years, the scale of organ harvesting victims appears to have grown, with increasing media reports of young people going missing in China. Now, both the screenshots and the whistleblower's Douyin account have been completely removed from the platform by Chinese regulators. The censorship has only made the claims more convincing to many, but the story has still left digital footprints. Search records on the platform, such as "What happened to the woman kidnapped?" show that many users tried to learn the fate of the woman mentioned in the chat. Flora Hua, NTD News.
French farmers are ramping up protests against an EU trade deal with 5 South American countries. Today, demonstrators dumped tons of potatoes on a bridge in Paris. Earlier in the day, the farmers drove tractors into the French capital. One convoy surrounded the Arc de 3, while another parked in front of the Parliament building. French and other European farmers have long objected to the EU's planned trade deal with Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, Paraguay, and Uruguay. A majority of EU member countries have approved the deal despite France's objections. Farmers say the agreement threatens local agriculture by creating unfair competition with cheaper South American imports. The Department of War wants to make Star Trek real. War Secretary Pete Hegseth visits SpaceX headquarters and Elon Musk to stress the importance of tech innovation. More news after this break.
Hi, I'm Amy Grant. I was living with a rare heart condition, and the doctor said if I didn't take care of it, it would become catastrophic. A few months later, I had open heart surgery that saved my life, and I owe it to the research and life-saving medical breakthroughs developed by the American Heart Association. Like so many women, I pushed through no matter what. But I've learned you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of other people.
I had a pretty normal mom life. Everything was pretty good, and it was a very happy life. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
And the American Heart Association helped make that possible. Their research helped save me.
Please call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough, get the next person trained in CPR, and get the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care.
I am very thankful for the American Heart Association. I'm grateful for just every day that I get with my children.
Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt you can wear to show you're part of a community of monthly donors working to help save more lives.
It's hard to imagine that a mom can die from pregnancy-induced heart failure, but thousands die every year. That's why your support is so urgently needed.
Any of us, every one of us, can make a modest monthly donation that actually helps and benefits everybody. Please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now to become a monthly donor. Thank you.
Making Star Trek real. War Secretary Pete Hegseth is promising tech innovation at the Pentagon. He visited the SpaceX headquarters in Texas on Monday and met with Elon Musk.
How about this? Star Trek real. Star Trek original.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth traveled to SpaceX headquarters in Starbase, Texas on Monday as part of his Arsenal of Freedom tour. The secretary told SpaceX employees that the U.S. must win the strategic competition for 21st century technological supremacy.
Now, the question before us is not whether or not the most powerful technologies of this century will reinforce free societies. Is it going to reinforce our free societies, or will that technology be shaped and twisted by malign regimes that seek to use those technologies for control and coercion?
The War Secretary praised Musk for running an innovative and efficient company. He said the War Department will be cutting bureaucratic underbrush, the Elon Musk style, and opening up to U.S. tech startups.
Until this administration, the Trump administration, the department's process for fielding new capabilities had become just one more post-Cold War peace dividend relic that has not kept up with the times. Worse than that, we've done nothing but add layer upon layer of committees and councils that coordinated but never decided. We created endless projects with no accountable owners. We have high churn with little progress and few outputs.
Hegseth told SpaceX employees that the Trump administration has the backs of innovators. He said the administration is committed to arming U.S. warfighters with overwhelming and lethal technology right now.
We are done running a peacetime science fair while our potential adversaries are running a wartime arms race.
The War Secretary listed some of the new areas of global competition, including artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, quantum, hypersonics and long-range drones, space capabilities, directed energy, and biotechnology.
With the arrest of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, the world's attention is turning to another communist totalitarian state in the backyard of the U.S. Today, the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation revealed the ongoing state terrorism that Cuba has been exporting for the past 60 years. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
This is very auspicious in the fight against world communism, obviously. This is the most hopeful time we have seen in quite some time. We know the events that happened in Venezuela, and we know they're going to have an impact on Cuba.
With the capture of former Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro, Cuba and its allies are scrambling. Here at the Victims of Communism Museum in Washington, D.C., analysts gathered to examine the Cuban regime's campaign of terror more than 6 decades in the making. The panelists listed several crimes by the Cuban communist regime and its support for other authoritarian states.
The number of Ethiopians killed by Mengistu and his Cuban allies were between 225,000 and 317,000, including at least over 1,000 children between 11 and 13 years of age.
With Cuba even aiding ongoing wars.
Havana has backed Russia's efforts in Ukraine, both diplomatically and militarily. Ukrainian intelligence reports that as many as 25,000 Cubans have been recruited to fight in Putin's imperial war in Ukraine today, and that presently 6,000 to 7,000 are in the field.
Cuba recently admitted that 32 Cuban military and intelligence personnel were killed by U.S. forces during the January 3rd arrest of Venezuela's Maduro. Some of those killed were members of Maduro's personal security detail. Following that, and because of Cuba's reliance on Venezuelan oil due to a U.S. embargo, President Trump said,
Cuba is ready to fall.
In 1966, the Cuban communist regime hosted the Tricontinental Conference in Havana, forming a violent terror network with dozens of countries across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, and with economic and military support from the Soviet Union and China. Over the next 60 years, these organizations carried out terrorist assassinations, violent revolutions, and plots to overthrow democratic governments across the world. According to the panel, the Cuban communist regime was one of the primary orchestrators behind the takeover of Venezuela and efforts to destabilize America through drug trafficking and political unrest.
At this point, I am sure that the regime leaders in Cuba are looking for an exit strategy to maintain basically their ill-begotten gains and their life. because there will be, in short order, I think, a regime change in Cuba.
It is long past time for them to go. They need to see the handwriting on the wall. Their economy has collapsed. They are abusive of their own people.
Whether it's Cuba, the Chinese Communist Party, Russia, or Iran, panelists say that the oppression is a common theme, and they warn the coming months could be decisive, not just for Cuba, but for the entire network of authoritarian regimes. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you for watching NTD Newsroom. We're taking a short break. We'll be back with more news. I'm Don Ma, and remember, NTD Evening News is at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific.
A performance that truly matters for each and every one of us.